Hello everyone, it's Oliver here and I'm back with Rob Hill, aka the Bad Movie Bible, to provide a commentary to the special edition cut of Aliens. So Rob, have you done your homework on the film and excited to watch it again?
I have done my homework. I'm excited to hand it in as well. But yeah, I am excited to watch it again actually because normally when we do these, I watch it. I watch the movie at least once in advance, and I haven't done this time purely and simply because I've seen Alien so many times and watched it only about 6 months ago as well. But it does mean it seems a bit fresher, and I'm kind of more excited than usual.
Excellent. Well, okay folks, you can enjoy this podcast by itself, but you can sync it with your own copy of the film, so put the timestamp to 0 on your Blu-ray or NTSC DVD and press play now. So, Rob, what was your kind of first experience with Aliens?
Well, as I've said before, I'm a little bit older than you. So I noticed in your retrospective video, which I rewatched as part of my research,
Oh,
um,
very nice.
you'd mentioned that you were a little older by the time it had been out for a little while, I think, by the time you saw it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
for sure.
think I saw it pretty much when it came out on video when I'd have been 10, looking back. Because I
That
do
would have
remember the
been,
posters being everywhere in the
would it be 87, do you think?
yeah, it
Maybe
was
early, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I think it was middle of 87.
I'd, yeah, I'd seen it through my sister and my dad had rented it, and I kind of sneaked into the front room where they were watching it. They knew I was seeing, I wasn't allowed to see it, but I just saw little bits of like when the aliens come through the ceiling and attack all the Marines, and I was just like, and I just, I couldn't. It was too scary to see, And then it was any kind of my kind of love of the Alien films really kind of stemmed from the release of Alien 3 and playing the video games, and that being my sort of window into the franchise because a kid you can't rent these films, so it was playing the video games but also being fully aware of the sort of marketing campaign for the film and thinking, oh my god, this looks really cool. And obviously the most of the reviews of Alien 3 were very underwhelming, but to a younger person and who's kind of then at the time Dark Horse Comics was kicking around, and obviously by that point James Cameron had released the extended cut of Aliens, this special edition cut on VHS and Laserdisc. So it was it was perfect age, I think, for me to sort of get into it. And then you start with, I don't know, I must have started with Alien 3 and then sort of gone backwards a little bit all the way through, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Because I only see snippets of Aliens, but when I sort of saw it for the first time, it was just like the most amazing science fiction film I'd ever seen, because it was a combination of horror with just like cool action sequences and just like cool characters who you really cared about and didn't want them to die, and when they do die you're like, no, but it's but how the sort of film opens, we're seeing Ripley 57 years later after the first one, and if you hear the little musical cue by James Horner as this ship sort of glides through space, is he repeats that exact same cue in the Harrison Ford movie Patriot Games. And I saw that, I think even in the sequel as well, there's a track called on the soundtrack called "Putting the Pieces Together," something like that. And I remember watching the film, go, "Wait a minute, this is like literally copy and paste of Aliens." It was mad, absolutely mad.
My volume might be down a little lower. I couldn't hear it then, but I remember this sequence involves that classical piece from 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's
I
like
don't
kind of
think.
like a string bit.
Yeah, it's a string piece here, which is kind of very, I suppose, somewhat inspired, but it's not taken directly. But he would. The only part of the score we find is taken directly from actually Alien is near the end when she's escaping from the Queen, and Bishop's flown off, then comes back because the whole structure was quite unsturdy. But
Yeah,
if you see there, as they're cutting through the door, you can see the gun.
the
Remember the
yeah,
gun she shot?
the
Yeah,
harpoon gun type thing. Yeah, I always loved that touch.
that's really good attention to detail, because I never saw that when I was younger. You don't really kind of, it was a muddy VHS and it's all pan and scanned. And
Well, like you, I saw this before I saw the original Alien because it was, I didn't know anything about this. I do distinctly remember standing in the video shop and the posters being everywhere and aliens. Well, that sounds great. And my mum obviously having no idea what it was like. And I don't think she ever really understood what rating systems were anyway. But it's an aliens movie, E.T., Alien, great. So like you say, it absolutely blew me away because the I'd never seen a movie like this. Science fiction was Star Wars,
yes,
and horror was kind of at that point was maybe a couple of slasher movies and no real other concept of it. And for it to kind of be action, science fiction, and horror all at the same time just blew my mind.
It's so crazy that that little sort of device that came through was just an extra cost that James Cameron had paid for because he wanted this kind of cool laser beam to come in and track, scan the area to look for anything that's kind of alive, and obviously to discover that Ripley's still there. But it's interesting that Aliens itself, like despite being a film from 1986, it was still kind of finding a whole new audience come the early 90s. It felt like the film had such like long lasting legs to it all. It
Mm.
just kept going and going and going.
Is it possibly because it's so genre? And back then, genre movies just didn't have the mainstream appeal. A whole generation of people would never have thought to watch a movie like this. My parents' generation of people would never have thought to watch a movie like this. Whereas their equivalent now, this kind of genre centric, genre heavy movie is that's what everything is.
Yeah, true, true. I mean, I was always kind of surprised when my dad would watch it, and like because he's such a different generation. He's like your dad, like likes war movies and
Mm.
World War Two stuff and things that are just slow and ponderous kind of films. Generally starring maybe Alec Guinness or something like that. But
Yes, always Alec Guinness or someone
yeah.
called Jack. There seems to be a lot of people called Jack in those war films.
So it's always So it shows that he did enjoy some of these kind of things, but yeah, I suppose for a certain age group, as you say, because it captures all genres as well, and it does it so well. It sort of provides everything that you want on a sort of checklist of kind of entertaining kind of science fiction. But
Yeah, it's really a model for what came, for what followed, I think.
definitely, this film really expanded, didn't it? The kind of the world of aliens, because obviously the life cycle of it, the Queen and so forth, and just the use of the Marines and their weaponry, it sort of expanded everyone's imagination for comics and toys and video games. We to expand it beyond what it is, just a real kind of just a at the time maybe three films, before Resurrection came about. And Paul Reiser, I mean, he's so good at being because he comes across such a nice guy and very kind and caring, but he's such a it's perfect stereotype of a yuppie of that period, isn't it?
Mm,
He's all out for his own personal gain.
it's incredibly unlikable as well. I remember him, he often tells the story of his sister slapping him after when they came out of the screening she saw it in. Even and his mum saying, "Even I wanted you dead."
We all know a Burke, don't we?
He was a like a comedian, wasn't he? He wasn't it
Oh
was
yeah,
playing completely against type here.
yeah, definitely. It was his TV show I used to see him on when I was a kid. He's looking after his little girl, maybe, or something like that, or was his
Oh
daughter? I
God,
can't
yeah, he was in
remember.
it was it a sitcom, yeah.
Yeah, it's a sitcom. Yeah, I saw bits of it, like '88 or something like that.
There was like a married couple sitcom he was in as well.
Yeah.
American listeners will know.
Is the cat still the same cat from the first one? It's
I think that's to be the assumption, isn't it? Because she did take it into the
Oh yeah, I'm saying yeah, not in terms
jungle.
of. I mean, the real cat.
Oh,
Because I'm sure there's some sort of it might still it should have been still alive at that point.
that would be quite something if they had found the same cat.
Oh, this bit always freaked me out as a kid. I mean, obviously, during the course of the opening sequence, we just find that she's still haunted by this dream of the chestburster. That poor cat should have just like freaked out and just jumped off the bed.
It must be sewn into the blanket or something to keep it there. And this is kind of one of the more sci-fi environments as well. You see, 'cause it's always not bothered me, but I've always noticed how essentially the clothes everyone wears and the language they use and all the things that you would expect to change over dozens of years haven't really changed at all. About the only difference is the suit jackets have their collars turned up, like in Futurama. It's like,
So, yeah, I don't know. That never caught on, did it?
well, not yet, not yet.
Well, this is the scene, isn't it? This is the first sort of extended sequence, isn't it? We see of Ripley where she discovers that her daughter had died, which was a picture of her mother. I think Sigourney's
Yes.
mother when
Mm.
they, and it's been like obviously back then with digitally kind of manipulating an image, it just ends up looking like a jagged mess of like sharpness and pixels, you know. But yeah, I think I think someone said that this would have got her nominated for an Oscar for this kind of key moment that shows the audience that she had lost her daughter and was essentially kind of like seeing Newt as her sort of, as her child.
Surrogate, yeah, yeah. Would have won her the Oscar. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And to be honest, I'm going to be a little bit lost during some of these additional scenes because unlike everyone else in the world, I generally watch the theatrical version when I go back to it.
Oh, do you?
And I've only seen this extended one, well, I've seen it a few times, I suppose, but
You sort of forget as they all blend in. You know what I mean? Because I'm so used to the extended cut that you end up forgetting,
you forget what's added. Yeah.
yeah, what's added. But I think some of the stuff you'll pop up, you go, oh yes, that bit. I think the key elements of what's added is, seeing Newton and her family find the croissant ship, as it were,
Yeah.
and seeing the other humans on Hadley's Hope with the great guy from Red Dwarf, from
Matt
season one,
McDonald. Yeah, I'm looking forward to. I love a bit of Matt McDonald.
and the who plays the bozo cop in Superman 4,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
Lex is,
He's in all kinds of stuff, isn't he? He's one of those
was it
American
Fifth
actors
Element,
in Britain.
you know,
Fifth Element. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And he's in Empire Strikes Back as well, which is he never gets mentioned for because you barely see him, to be
Is
honest.
that on Hoth?
Yeah, he's one of the pilots of the speeders on Hoth. You see him kind of hanging around in the hangar.
Oh man, I can't remember that bit.
It's funny, isn't it? Because yeah, it's like they can't. There's always this handful of American actors who are knocking about in Britain in the '80s, and you see them come up over and over again. Bruce Bower is one of the most common ones. Who's also in Empire Strikes Back as the gen. He plays a general in about a dozen different movies, including Superman, actually, that were shot
That's
here.
Yeah.
And
Is he in? Is he the one in Faulty
he's the
Towers?
one
But
from
the
Fawlty Towers. Yeah, yeah. It's I love making those connections.
because the casting agent for the film said they had like 3,000 people, to look at, and in the UK when you got a lot of American actors who've moved here, she did say they sort of do get anglicised, where the accent doesn't is not quite as
Yeah.
thick as it used to be, so you have to sort of be very careful in terms of casting to make sure that they do retain that accent, because you have to have a mix of things, don't you? And this is always confusing for me, right? Okay, so as we know, like in the first film, Wayland Yutani or Wayland whatever, we get implied that they were told, or the ship was told to sort of go in the direction to where this LV-426
Mm.
and told to investigate this signal. That they kind of knew something was there, and obviously Ash is kind of like keeping things, all secretly, and we find out through the mother control system that life they're expendable. Make sure this creature survives, right? In this one, what we're seeing is that Wayland, I don't know, this seems to be, are they representatives of Wayland in terms of lawyers who are dealing with her about the cost of the loss of the ship, the oil rig at the refinery, Nostromo, and not really believing her in terms of like the alien, and there's humans now on LV-426. There's what they're doing, but then we find out that Burke, during the course of the story, tells them about where the ship is, and
Mm.
everyone gets attacked and so forth. I always thought he was doing these things on his own, and
Yeah.
it wasn't Wayland telling him to do this, because since they lost communication from Hadley's Hope, I always thought Burke was doing it on his own to make a profit to the weapons division and get them through quarantine by basically getting them impregnated on the Sulaco as they return. So I know was kind of in this one it's a little bit more unclear if
To be
Wayland
honest,
are.
this whole aspect of the alien world has always seemed a little bit confused and fudged to me. Although I
Mm,
think that there might be a way through it, though. I'm aware that there is this theory that Burke's acting on his own and he's not acting on instructions. But that's not something I'd ever considered until I read it some years ago, and I don't buy it myself because I think that the corrupt corporation aspect is such a strong theme that if you just make it Burke acting on his own, then you kind of lose that because the corporation hasn't necessarily done anything wrong. And I think it's easy to believe that a corporation like that is going to have one arm doing one thing and another arm doing another. You know, what the people in this room might have no idea about it, but Burke perhaps does. But Burke as a, an agent of the inner circle, perhaps, of Weyland-Yutani.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a pretty fair argument. I was always just kind of as a theoretically kind of like well, who was doing what, and I was these people here grilling Ripley. Are they just legal representative lawyers of Wayland?
Mm,
So they don't know. They're not because he's just like, oh yeah, there's people living there, comfortably for 20 years. He
yeah,
says. But in number three, it's very much clear that Wayland are evil, the bad
yeah.
guys. But this is a little bit more kind of like not entirely clear.
I mean, it could also be arguably that they're covering themselves when it comes to Ripley's knowledge of the situation. Maybe they all know, but this is how she would expect them to act if they didn't. So that's how they have to act. Well,
Yeah, yeah,
it's not ideal writing because at the end of it, we probably shouldn't be confused about something like this. I don't think this is something that's maybe meant to be open ended.
yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously by the third film, it's very clear cut, right? But it is sometimes you don't have to explain all the finer details, and it's nice to have a discussion with your friends afterwards. Say, oh,
Mm.
is that it creates a sort of a creative sort of kind of reflection on what you've seen, and don't always show and tell, isn't it? Things like that.
Yeah,
They always
yeah.
say.
It's also at the end of the day, these are a series of films within one universe written by different people. So there's no reason that James
Yeah.
Cameron's perception of it all should be the same as David Fincher's or anyone
Yeah,
else's.
as we famously know that Cameron was pissed off with Fincher for the changes he made, but they are friends. But obviously, this is all new stuff. This is all the extended stuff. So we're going to see, um, you know, some of the classic faces of TV.
Captain Hollister.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you see
This
this.
is all these miniatures you're seeing here is kind of made up of parts that was destroyed from the Supergirl set. That
Oh,
was
see,
because
really?
this is filmed 85, so Supergirl was 84, so it'll probably been filmed probably majority of 83 into 84. But they left a lot of the sets then. They just because they built this massive piece of road for the whole street scene in Supergirl to recreate this American town. And when it all got taken down, destroyed, they were burning all this stuff every week. So the guys would go out, grab all this material, and just use it to make these little miniatures. And that street they'd built for Supergirl would end up being used for Batman as the main strip
It's,
for Gotham
isn't
City.
it funny how there are these connections that run because there are so many connections between this and Batman in
Yep.
terms of common actors and I guess and obviously
Well, yeah, because
sets
he's
and
in
so
Batman,
on as
isn't he?
well.
He's one of Joker's
Yeah,
clowns, isn't
yeah,
he?
he's
So,
the guy who spray paints the grin on the bust in the museum. The
yeah,
Matt McDonald here.
does the weird sort of miming in the street,
Yeah, he looks a lot healthier than he does here actually in Batman. I love this little Shining reference.
It's all Pinewood Studios, so
Yeah,
there's always crossover, as we found with a number of the commentaries we've done, even reviews I've done. You're going to get people who worked on Bond and Superman and Aliens.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, and in fact, a lot of the more controversial members of the crew, who Cameron, as I'm sure we'll get into, that Cameron fell out with, had worked on, a bunch of Bond movies, and would then go on to work on Batman as well. I think
Yeah.
the DP who he fired, I think, did Batman in the end. Was it the first AD? First AD,
Oh, the
Derek
first AD
Cracknell.
was it?
Yeah, that was
Derek
it.
Cracknell, yeah, because Dick Bush was fired.
Yeah,
Because he had done some really good movies like The Sorcerer and things like that with Freakin',
yeah,
and he'd did for 3 weeks. He basically, as David Giles says, a cinematographer should not be dictating
yeah,
how the film should look, or like giving direction. So it's the politics of it all that got him fired. And Adrian Biddle was brought on because he worked for Tony Ridley Scott commercials. I think Adrian even worked on Alien as a sort of maybe a focus puller or something like that, a smaller role in the camera team. So it was kind of natural fit, right? And the late Adrian Biddle, I think the last thing he did was Basic Instinct 2. I think a bit of that. I think he had a heart attack, but he did some of the biggest movies of the 90s.
yeah, yeah.
Good DP. Event Horizon and the Mummy.
Event Horizon, which obviously took a lot from this.
Yes.
That's that guy there. I'm not a fan of this scene, to be honest. I don't think it really adds much, and I don't think anyone's very good in it.
This fits within the acting realm of a Roger Corman movie, doesn't it?
He's another one of these American actors who crops up in British, one of your go-to Americans for British productions, Jay Benedict, I think his name. He's in a bunch of TV stuff, and they had to hire them because of the rules at the time meant that a certain number of the cast members had to come from Britain. And obviously, if you want Americans in your movie, which if you're making an American movie is quite reasonable,
Well, Jen Goldstein and Mark Rolston were both in
yeah,
UK, both lived in the UK, and
yeah.
Al Matthews, who was the fireman in Superman 3. Sort of like there's
I
all
didn't know he was in the
crossovers,
UK. How did he end up in the UK then?
I'm not sure. I think I don't know. We don't know. And also, he had the military experience, but maybe he just kind of like moved over here to do something else, and maybe
Maybe he
got
was
some sort of.
stationed here at some point and stayed
Yes.
afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's also how Newt got cast, isn't it? What's her name? Carrie Henn, is it? I can't remember.
Carrie Henn. Yeah.
She was, I think, the daughter of an American member of the armed forces.
Mm. Yeah, it happens quite a lot. Then they go sort of searching for Americans who most of them are army bases.
Yeah,
Obviously, her brother got cast as well to be her real brother in the film, but he obviously got cut out of the theatrical cut. But as you say, with the acting, it's a bit ropey. Where they're sort of arguing in the background about who's the best at climbing through air ducts. She's like, "I'm the best," just like, and he goes, "Baby, we've hit it big time," as they found the big ship. So yeah, the acting is just a bit, it's not great.
yeah. I do like the parents in particular. I think it gives the kids too much to do, that scene in a way that doesn't
Yeah,
suit
yeah.
them. But I mean, the parents don't have that excuse.
I don't have that
In
excuse.
fact, that's another Batman connection, actually. Not Tim Burton's Batman, but Jay Benedict. I remember looking him up when I was researching this for the video I made on Aliens knockoffs, and about the only prominent role that Newt's dad had in anything else was in Dark Knight Rises. It's only a very small one, literally just a tiny little bit. When he's the guy who's dancing with Selena Kyle with Catwoman when Batman interrupts and takes. That's Newt's
Oh,
dad.
holy
I think
shit!
he's called Arrogant Twit or something like that in the.
Yeah, that'd be great. Signing autographs at Comic Con and just like in Dark Knight Rises, arrogant twit. My God, it's the twit,
Well, there are actors from Star Wars in much smaller roles than that who still make a living at Comic Cons and so on.
dude. At Comic Con, there's a guy who was in Force Awakens with his back to camera, and the picture of him signing autographs was a picture with his back turned to
You're
camera.
joking.
It's like even guy. Oh my God, it's crazy, isn't it? Like someone who's like not even like their face is on screen.
A guy I
They
used to
can
be
sign
really good
autographs.
friends with was in Force Awakens actually. Who I worked with in post production. He was a
Mm.
Spanish guy called Jaime, and he was just so unbelievably beautiful that I think they saw him walking past at Pinewood and were just like, right, oh, you come and stand here, and he ends up like framed front and center in quite a few shots.
Come here, you're gorgeous. And he was in Hellraiser 2, wasn't he? So he was, uh, done all right for himself around this period. Again, working at Pinewood again
Yeah.
with Hellraiser.
And that is such a lazy clothes of the future look, isn't it? It's exactly what people wear now, just with a collar turned up. Her dressing gown's the same, everything's the same.
Yeah, I mean the set as well. It's got like bits of it derived from like an airplane because the airplane toilet, the sink and stuff. That's actually a real one.
It,
It's
I mean, that kitchen looks like a 1980s kitchen.
yeah, yeah. It's I mean also Sid Mead, one of the best sort of futurists. Sort of designed a lot of the kind of interior stuff with along with Ron Cobb.
Hmm.
Ron Cobb's like worked on things like Conan and so forth.
I think it was Ron Cobb who came up with the Leyland Yutani name as well, because it wasn't.
Because
Um,
we had this discussion last time where they keep changing it, don't they? Because Ridley Scott has a different name for it, doesn't it?
they changed the spelling, but I hadn't realised
Mm,
until recently that it was Ron Cobb who came up with the name just purely and simply because he needed to write a name of something on the side of one of his models, and just
mm.
came, and that's how it ended up being what it is. It's a great performance from Paul Reiser because you can. I mean, it's hard to remember what it's like watching it the first time round and presumably assuming that he is the good guy he seems to be. But with the
Yeah,
knowledge that he isn't, there are so many great little touches that he puts into it because you can so see how with hindsight. You can so see how he is actually a proper scumbag.
Yeah, but he's very good at the sort of the nervous kind of reaction he gives. You know, I mean, but he's also very calm under pressure, where everyone else is like freaking out, and he's just like, "Why don't we, sing a couple of songs?" You know, it's like you want a fucking alien world, things running around, dropships exploded, and it's pretty cool and calm.
The advantage of having more information than everyone else, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you think of Sigourney Weaver's performance in this one compared to the first?
Well, it's far more sort of fine tuned. I think she's obviously we see the majority of the first act where she's very distraught and upset and expressing a lot of a real emotion. You can really get behind a performance. You don't see this kind of high level of quality acting in this kind of genre. I think
Mm,
with this kind of budget as well. You often they I don't know. It just felt like seeing her in this gives it so much kind of what's the word, sort of high quality kind of value to it.
mm.
It's something you have to take it seriously. You can't. It's not just like
Yeah.
a another sequel of a film that's kind of just like done for cheap and it's just you know diminishing returns sort of attitude. I think throughout though she just really kind of holds the film together. Everything's on her shoulders really the
Yeah,
whole film.
yeah. Yeah. She has a completely different responsibility to that she has in the first film. Obviously, she
Definitely, yeah.
comes to the fore and is it's not a criticism, but it's much more one-dimensional in Alien. I mean, that's what she's required to be. That's what the character is. But the depth that she brings in this, without ever overdoing it, is extraordinary. I
Mm.
always think because
Mm.
there's a lot of weight to carry in these opening scenes. The daughter who's died, the experience of coming back, was it 57 years or whatever it is, late, the whole,
Yeah.
there's an awful lot to communicate there one way or another. And she manages to do it without ever seeming heavy-handed or without ever overselling it.
She's got this sort of PTSD thing going on, where she's even when she has to explain what happened to John Hurt's character, to the Marines, she just starts breaking down. She can't get her words out. That's really good, sort of good nuance to her performance. And
Mm,
but also by this point, she'd done a bunch of films. She'd done Ghostbusters.
yeah.
At the time because Alien was the first film she did, so her confidence is just like on camera is just like perfect. But at the time when they were doing the discussions of a sequel, it's just called Alien 2. Fox didn't want to make it, and a number of people had sort of dipped in and out of executive positions, at the studio. And someone came in and goes, "Hey, what's going on with Alien 2?" And once obviously Cameron got involved, and as we've just explored a little bit in the Terminator commentary, that you had to take a break. Well, Arnold, they had to take a break because Arnold had to make Conan the
Mm,
Destroyer, and he wrote his pitch for Aliens, which they loved. And they hadn't told Sigourney, and she like 3 months before filming, she gets this script while she just finished a film called I think One Man, I think it's a One Woman Two Men or something like that. It was a French film, One Woman or Two, sorry. And yeah, she read it and also loved it, and
Well,
but obviously she got a good deal
well,
because
yeah, but it was only really Cameron and Hurd who wanted her in it, though, wasn't it? Because I remember reading David Giler, who's the executive at Brandywine, who really drives these first two movies. I think he's possibly the most important figure in the overall between these first two movies. But their research at Brandywine suggested that she hadn't been a popular hero in the first film, and that audiences would have preferred a male actor. And obviously Fox didn't want to pay the money she was asking. So it was Cameron and Gail Ann Hurd, his wife and producer, who really made sure she was in it.
well, yeah, David Garlis said, like, I think even after the third one, like the women attending these films were quite low. It was all about the guys going to
Yes,
see
yeah,
it,
this is a
and
point you make in your retrospective as well, isn't it? Yeah, a female audience was never, and I guess his assumption was, or his feedback was, if women aren't going to see it, then men are going to see it, and men would rather see a man. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but
no, I don't. Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of thing where it's that sort of fantasy of like they see themselves in that role, where a man would see
yeah.
himself as Ripley, right? So, but the guys, there's plenty of male characters in this to sort of look up to or be inspired by it. Probably when you're a teenager or a kid to say, "Wow, I'll just try and recreate this," And that's why we have so many fan movies, with guys dressed up as Colonial Marines in front of green screens. Um, but yeah, I mean, they had the foresight to show that Ripley was an important, integral character to this
Well,
franchise.
absolutely. I mean,
And
how you make this movie without its themes of motherhood is beyond me. I don't know you're left with something so limited thematically that it's so important. Oh, Vasquez looks so young there.
I know. I think she said she was from London, but I know in some discussion she was near Milton Keynes or kind of knew of the town and just like the bizarre nature of its architecture, and she always found amusing. I always thought they had a sort of sexual thing going on, but the actors sort of deny it as as their characters. I don't know. I always thought that
Well,
was their thing.
they had. I know they came up with a backstory together that that says they grew up together and got
Mm.
in trouble with the law or something and were recruited into the Colonial Marines out of like juvenile hall or something like that. So I wonder. I mean, they've obviously got a very special connection, but I wonder if it is more platonic than romantic.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because I remember when I did my review, I was unaware of this kind of backstory. So it seems at face value that there is kind of a thing going on. Wasn't Cameron said like he found it difficult to introduce Bishop and sort of spoke to Lance Henriksen? So how do we introduce the character?
Yeah.
And was this kind of trick? What are you doing, man?
And this was just the coolest thing ever when I was a kid. This is probably my favorite bit in the movie back when I was a teenager and younger.
It was because Bill Paxton and James had known each other for a number of years, hadn't they? Because you know, Bill was a set decorator
Yeah,
or a
on
painter or something
Galaxy
like
of
that.
Terror, which we have to get into at some point as well, because it is basically a dry run for this movie. It is extraordinary how much Cameron brought from between Galaxy of Terror and Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers novel. You've got about
Mm.
50% of the elements in this movie.
I mean, I first saw Bill in Weird Science, which I think is still my favourite John Hughes movie. Mainly down, mainly thanks to Bill. It's snowing in my bedroom. It's like,
Well, it's the strength of his performance in that convinced Fox to use him, or Brandywine, I forget which, to
yeah,
use him here. Because
yeah,
he
yeah.
wasn't initially on Cameron's radar, was it? Because there's that, I don't know if it's an
No,
urban
he
legend,
had
but oh,
auditioned.
had
He
he?
had
But
auditioned. Yeah, yeah. But
wasn't it only because Cameron had bumped into him at an airport or something, or is that an urban myth?
no, I think it's down to the fact that he hadn't obviously knew Bill and he got
Hmm.
him to audition, and Bill thought he didn't do the audition right. He thought he messed it up, and obviously while after Weird Science, he got a phone call from saying, "Oh, James wants you in England pronto," essentially. But a lot of what we love about Bill Paxton's character is that it's Bill, isn't it? It's basically his energy on screen. That's why everyone loves it. And that's why everyone loves Bill. It's such a horrible shame that he passed away. Botched surgery.
It kind of upsets me when people say that he folds in this, that he collapses under the pressure and just kind of freak, because he does, but he doesn't as well. He doesn't crumble in the way that Gorman does, for example, when he just freezes
Mm,
and he only sort of breaks down and starts shouting and crying and playing out
mm.
when there's nothing crucial happening. When the shit really hits the fan, he's back on it again.
Yeah, when he stops to think, about what's going. When things slows down, he's like, "We're fucked." But when it goes to the action, yeah, when he saves Newt from the facehugger, and when he just loses his temper near the end, which would probably, I think, is kind of also a little bit of a window for the audience to sort of sympathise with, like if they're in that scenario, where, I mean, Ripley's just like, again, she's just, despite all this depression and this fear, she really sort of holds them all together. It's like, I can't take your bullshit. You got to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah. It's a pressure release as well every time if he sort of flips out like that, isn't it? It's because Gorman and likewise, when he freezes, it's more sort of cerebral and internal, whereas
We're sort of like most men. If they get a bollocking from a woman, they're like, okay, I'll do as I'm told.
Oh, the pressure and tension in this scene's great as well.
But you see, the opening of this sequence where it has that matte painting of as it pans across, in lower resolution format video, you can go like, wow, it looks pretty seamless. But when you see it in high definition, it's like, oh, that's a painting.
It is. It's a slightly ropier looking movie in that respect than I ever realized back in the days of VHS. Because that's one of the things I was going to say actually is that I always sort of equated this more with Terminator 2 in terms of its scale and polish and so on. But watching it again these days, it's actually a bit more like the first Terminator. It's kind of down and dirty, and it's much smaller than it ever felt back in the day.
That is spot on, man. Yeah, it doesn't feel as big as Alien.
No,
I don't
no, it
think,
doesn't.
and that's a lower budget
It
movie.
feels like a B movie, really, and I remember it always felt like an A movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. This is down to the craftsmanship of like doing everything in camera, and there's quick cuts to hide things. But once you sort of focus on something a little bit too long, I think down to how Cameron's remastered his movie, it's kind of revealed too much. I think the sort of as he zapped out the grade and sharpened everything so much, it reveals a lot more the faults. And I
Mm.
think having that roughness to it, rough and ready kind of movie, it fits it, and it hides a lot of the sort of the obvious kind of miniatures or matte paintings.
And yeah, and the rear projection as well. The rear projection always really stands out to me.
Oh, I love rear projection. If any film used rear projection, I'm like, do it. I mean, all you got to do is just maybe just adjust the grading slightly on that, so it doesn't look so
Yeah, it always looks a bit washed
obvious.
out, doesn't it? A bit, yeah.
Yeah, but that was the beauty though. When we watched Terminator 2, you got the one shot of the endoskeletons moving forward, then with a rear screen projection that's photographed with animated miniatures, and just all blends together.
Mm.
Just like and that's I love. That's what I love about filmmaking and the visual effects side of things, where it's done within camera.
And everything's done in camera in this movie, pretty much, I think, isn't it?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
so little.
They couldn't afford to do too much blue screen, but I wouldn't have wanted blue screen because you would have ended up there's a ragged matte lines over everything,
Mm.
just shimmering. So I think yeah, rear projection all the way.
Neat little establishing of this power loader,
Yeah, yeah, and obviously implies that Ripley knows how to control them.
which is also from Robert Heinlein's. So have you ever read Starship Troopers?
No, it's bonkers, isn't it? Like
It's
some
absolutely
weird.
mental. Yeah, it's extraordinary. It's unhinged. If you assume that it's sincere rather than like satirical or ironic or something, and I think it is sincere. But
Do you think so? You've read it. Do you think?
I say that I read the first half of it, and I just like I just couldn't deal with it. But
Do you think the film though? Do you think the film captures the book though?
I think the film satirizes it personally, but in that, but that's also an accusation. The same accusations are often pointed at Paul Verhoeven, as we talked about a bit in RoboCop's commentary. Is he a fascist or is he satirizing fascism? And I think it's satire. But this power loader is from the dropship as well that we're about to see is also from Starship Troopers, a Robert Heinlein invention.
Bit rear projection there.
Yeah.
Because obviously, Michael Biehn had replaced James Remar after a couple of weeks because he was doing as a drugs, and but there's only on-set photos of James. There's no actual footage. I don't think. I think maybe one shot remains in the film where
Apparently,
James
there's
is.
that one shot, yeah, famously, but yeah, yeah,
They walk in with that amazing foreground miniature.
yeah. Because funny enough, I'd always read about that there's that one scene, but it wasn't until I saw your retrospective your retrospective the first time that I finally identified the supposed shot, and I think it sounds likely, doesn't it? Really, because you can see why they wouldn't have reshot that.
Well, it's 3 weeks of footage you would have wasted potentially. There was it's interesting discussions because we know about the frustrations with the politics of the sort of unions in the UK conflicting with James Cameron and the American crew, and how they operated, and the frustration of the everyone having their breaks for a cup of tea and scones and so, mouldy bread and stuff like that.
Trips to the pub as well every
Yeah,
lunchtime.
yeah, yeah. So it's very. I think the Americans thought the British were kind of far more laid back, and I think that's kind of true. But they still gave you the best results, But it's kind of like what the frustration was that they kept obviously stopping to have every couple of hours have a tea break or something to eat, and and the English crew said, well, if you're a director, you've got endless amounts of energy where everyone else, they can't go on for all day without eating. So you need to have.
Yeah, but that's bullshit, though, isn't it? They were just recalcitrant, lazy bastards who were unionized and had a bee in their bonnet because they hated Cameron and they hated Gale Anne Hurd. And it's a common story from back in the day. I don't know if it's quite the same now, but it's definitely a common story, isn't it, from back in the day? I mean, Lucas was famously bereft at the problems he
Well,
faced dealing with his
Gil
British
Taylor.
crew and
Yeah,
everything. But it's a cultural thing, isn't it? Because it is due to the unionizing largely because that's how they were able to say, right, it's 5 o'clock, we're finished now, which American crews would just have no concept of, and understandably, to be honest, in a way. But
it might have been clear that Gale Anne Hurd had budgeted the movie to fit within those rules of American rules.
that's the thing. That's what experienced filmmakers did. They were aware of this being the issue, and it was a part of the payoff of filming in the UK, where either it's cheaper or you have access to craft people of a certain standard or whatever. I think it's probably a lot to do with it being cheaper as well. But
Yeah,
they
the
didn't
pound
do
to the
that.
dollar.
They were
Yeah,
they were very naive filmmakers, and this comes up again and again in the story of the making of Aliens. Is that Cameron and Gale and Hurd were inexperienced and they didn't take certain things into account.
and yeah. I mean, a lot of the time the British crew would say like Gale Anne Hurd would. They'd built that. The sleeping the machines where they sleep in.
Mm,
They'd built like maybe two or one of them, and she goes, "Oh, we can't make any more. We have to scrap this scene." He goes, "Well, you can't scrap it because you're wasting money. Not getting rid of it. Just getting rid of it and then not filming it. You don't save money because you've already built it.
yeah,
So he goes, like, we'll just do the mirror trick,
yeah, yeah.
right? But a lot of the time, there's situations where she just go, oh, I'll just fire you then. He goes, well, where are you going to find someone to replace at this last minute? You know what I mean? It's a lot of battle, a lot of war talk. It's
Yeah,
what James Horner said.
yeah.
Like he was so pushed to get the last music done because hadn't considered the amount of time
Well,
a composer would need.
exactly. That's another perfect example. Yeah, James Horner was frustrated with their inexperience in just the same way as the crew were, really. But it is a two-sided coin though, because I've worked at Pinewood and it's not quite the same now, but when I used to work for a company called MPC in London in visual effects, and it was bought by Technicolor, which had been based at Pinewood for decades. And so I went to work at a new facility in London with a bunch of people who'd come from Pinewood. Lovely guys, lovely girls, everyone, great people, but there was a completely different work ethic and a completely different background, even in the 2000s, like around 2010. The inst People in VFX were generally film fanatics who wanted to work in that industry and were prepared to give up their time and their health in order to do it. People from Pinewood were generally people who grew up around Pinewood and went to work there in much the same way as they'd go and work in a factory down the road. It's just where they got their jobs. And my first producer after moving was he was just broken by the whole experience of it because he was used to at 3 o'clock. He was used to going to play golf every day, and it's extraordinary when you compare that work ethic and that approach to the one that we were used to, where people were often still working at 3 o'clock that night, sitting at their desk doing
Jesus, man, that's mental. But they also, the British crew said there was just a clash of
Yeah,
personalities.
it's six of one, half a dozen of another.
Because as we know with James Cameron with his short temper and
Yeah.
stuff, it's not going to reflect with the the general kind of Cockney Londoner, who wants his tea break, wants to go to the pub at 5.
And they all got off on the wrong foot anyway, because most of them had worked with Ridley Scott and loved Ridley Scott, and they Ridley Scott was not invited back to make this movie, and I think there was some tension over that. And obviously Cameron hadn't proved himself yet. The Terminator either he kept trying to scream Terminator for them famously, and no one would go and watch it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think they had more confidence in him and respect for him once they started seeing the rushes.
Mm,
Like, oh wow,
yeah,
it's crazy. This little combination here we're seeing is obviously miniatures, and when it lands, the actual vehicle itself, they can only fit like 2 people in it. These kind of when they used to sort of move planes around, wasn't it? Like they
yeah,
pull like
yeah. One
maybe
of those, yeah, airplane towing things. It was 75
yeah.
tons, if I remember rightly.
That's right, yeah. I think they removed 35 tons of it or
Yeah,
something like that. Mental, isn't it? It's Peter Lamont, the production designer, who's, Bond guy and did Titanic, but he has, it's really interesting stories about this sort of process of breaking it all down and making it work. There's always those production designers of Britain. It goes, oh yeah, we can find that for you. Just this
yeah.
kind of scrap yards they find stuff to sort of cobble together this, the interior or something. Very creative.
Which, ironically, is what Cameron essentially made his name to. That's how he got his first gig directing Piranha 2, isn't it? He was the executives of Piranha 2, was it Livio Giaconatis or something, I think, was turned up on the set of Galaxy of Terror and was so impressed with Cameron's problem solving, doing his set design and production design, his ability to just conjure stuff up and make it work out of odds and sods, that this guy is going to be a great director. Let's put him on Piranha 2 and then sack him straight away.
There's, as the effects guy said, you couldn't, hide things on camera because he knew everything, the technical side. So you had to really
Yeah, yeah. I think
be on your full
that
game.
drove everyone mad at Pinewood as well, because obviously, yeah, he was able to call bullshit when he was being bullshitted, and he also kept stepping in to do things himself, which you wouldn't you, if you got and the unions don't like that.
Nope.
We just saw on the side of the dropship there the that Bug Stomper logo, and that got me. I
That's
saw.
a Starship Troopers, isn't it?
Yeah, that's actually a term from the Robert Heinlein book, I think, Bug Stomper.
The only good bug is a dead bug,
But it
as
also
they say.
points to I guess, because I think we discussed before, one thing I've never really understood in the alien world is whether mankind is aware of alien species. Because strangely, it's never addressed, as far as I'm aware, anyway.
Well, it's only addressed in terms of like, is this another bug hunt? They say.
Exactly, yeah, yeah. I'd never picked up on that until very recently,
Again, another little nod to Starship Troopers, I would
which
say.
suggests that this is a crew who are specialists in stamping out alien infestations, which
Probably
presumably
like little
therefore,
bug things or something. Nothing to the degree of a xenomorph,
yeah, but
Or
still alien life, you'd
yes,
assume.
yes,
So
yes, yeah. I think so. Yeah. So in this world, they are the aliens. What we refer to are known.
mm,
Because they've colonized so many planets.
yeah, yeah.
I'm still so disappointed with you, Rob, that you never went to Alien War and you were based around London. God, I was watching a video the other day about Alien War because it's like just writing this video about the Alien 3 video games. It was around that sort of same time, when Alien 3 came out, there was Alien War, and it's such a incredible experience. A 20, I think it's about 20-minute experience as you go around sets like this, being chased by an alien or multiple aliens as these kind of guys in these colonial marine suits kind of run around and take you to the exit. And
See, I didn't have time back then. I had double the workload because of all the lazy bastards from Pinewood.
well, this is from 92 to
Okay, yeah,
95,
yeah.
so yeah. So I don't know. One of the, didn't you say one time your parents didn't like you watching too much TV or something like that?
TV, they weren't a big fan. Independent television, certainly, adverts were frowned upon. Movies like this were fine for some reason.
Adverts were frowned upon.
It was different back then, though, wasn't it? My local video store wouldn't rent you 18s if you were in your school uniform, but he would sell them to you ex rental. I love that logic.
Oh man, that's great. Yeah, my local video shop owner, because he knew my dad, he just let me rent a 15 or an 18. After a certain, well, I was about 14, 15. No, a bit less than that.
He had a massive screen, my local video guy. I don't know if I've said this in a commentary before. I apologize if I had, but he had a massive, like, rear projection TV screen or back, whatever they were called, those huge ones. And every day he put a movie on after school, and a bunch of us, hardcore kids would go sit there and watch it. And it was. I remember it being Predator a lot, and I remember it being this from time to time as well. It was always something just wildly inappropriate. He'd sit there on the floor. He'd sit there behind his desk, chain smoking Rothman cigarettes. And you'd have like mums coming in with their little ones to rent Disney movies or whatever, like stepping over these kids watching these dead bodies hanging from trees in Predator Land while the guy blows smoke in the kid's face. It's just, the 80s were great.
It's interesting seeing how much the film has changed in its visual look, because this was very much more heavy blues, that we saw in like later see in T2. And when we discover the face huggers, they're very much the whole area, that whole room is like very lit with like purple kind of neon, and it's all been zapped out of the picture, which is kind of a bit disappointing because I suppose it fits, those color schemes fit within that 80s horror vibe, and I don't know, maybe gives the film a little bit more of a stronger color palette when you kind of make everything a little bit more uniform, and with its color design now, it's very like cold, steely blues and greens. I don't know. I think some of the Adrian Biddle's photography has kind of been messed with,
Yeah,
but it's Cameron's movie.
yeah, yeah. I find it distracting to be it more than anything else when there's a big grade, and certainly when changes are made. I don't know why you'd want to draw attention to something that you shouldn't really be consciously noticing.
I was always annoyed at the end, like a little bit sad, because when the nuclear bomb goes off, oh, the hamsters! Should have taken them with me.
I've never thought about that.
Did you ever see the spoof of this with Jennifer Saunders or Dawn French? I suppose Dawn. No, what was it called?
French and Saunders.
Yeah, French Saunders. Sorry, yeah, where they spoof aliens.
Yeah, do you know what? I hadn't thought about that. I mean, I saw it back in the day, but
It's on YouTube where Kathy, like basically, Jennifer Saunders goes, I need to go in there. I need Kathy Burke with a flamethrower or something. And she's like, and they go in with Kathy Burke with this flamethrower, and they find Dawn French stuck to the wall, and they free her, and she just follows her around, annoying her. Just being Dawn French.
I came across a spitting image parody of this as well when I was researching. Yeah, it's only it's not very long, but there's some funny bits in it.
All right, the area is secured. Let's go in and see what the computer can tell me. It's not secure. The area is secured, Ripley. First team, head for operation.
Gorman's confidence, dear oh dear. It's a little bit coming up where Bill Paxton's character, he basically searches through like their tracking devices to find they're all kind of located under the near the reactor, I suppose, where everyone's keeping warm, I suppose. And I don't think he does doesn't bother to check the security cameras. You know what I mean? To sort of think, wait a minute, you would have seen all this attacks happening and go, yeah, okay, right, we're going to leave now. Just blow it up.
That's something they wouldn't do now, or something rather they would do now. Something they wouldn't do in a movie is omit a detail like that. I guess back then people just weren't thinking about security cameras so much.
Yeah, yeah. But then you see them do use these security cameras later as a
That's true.
extended
Yeah,
scene where
yeah.
they've sealed off the area that leads them to the complex and to the reactor, the core, and they put the turrets up. No, I think it was Michael Bean says a bit frustrated that because everyone got to personalise their outfits, right? Didn't they? With little kind of like
Mm.
symbols, and James Remar had put a heart on his. He was like, oh, it's just like it's just like the perfect place to shoot me, isn't it? Like to kill me. So
Yeah, it must have been weird, literally stepping into someone's still warm costume that they'd essentially built themselves.
He found like an eighth in the pocket. Ooh.
I think it might have been something a bit more hardcore than weed.
I also had this kind of weird thing that Michael Jackson sort of modelled his face on Sigourney Weaver. It's the same weird, same nose, same hair's going on. It's just like it feels a bit like,
I always thought
you know.
Diana Ross. So this is all Pinewood, isn't it? This stuff. We're not
Oh, Pinewood,
we're
yeah.
because we have been to that Acton power plant a couple of times now, I think, haven't we? So I think that's where the
We haven't been to Acton
oh, haven't
yet.
we? Is that not where the
No, Acton's when they go find where everyone's being cocooned.
right? Oh, I thought all the stuff with the APC, the armored personnel carrier, was at Acton, but no, there's no reason why it should be actually thinking about it.
Mm. See, all the purple out of this scene has been zapped. I don't know how they do that. It's crazy. The way that how the grading advancements has improved over the years. It's crazy how you can make a film look so different,
Yeah,
radically different.
and yeah, it's got that modern cyan look instead.
Yeah, not a fan. This bit always everyone anyone I show this film to who hasn't seen it, this bit always makes them jump on cue with the face I got. I mean,
It's beautifully done though. The way the light source is used and the way the camera pans across with Paul Reiser like that.
yeah.
I wonder what Cameron was thinking of when he.
It's interesting that David Garland Waterhill didn't really know where to go with the sequel because he said like it was a mix. Well, he had an idea like it was a mix between Southern Comfort, which they had
Yeah.
produced, and the Magnificent Seven, and that was his idea. But I think Cameron, when he discussed it, he's like they didn't really have a solid idea.
No, I
It's,
don't
it's
think
kind of
they
weird.
did.
Over that course of like 6 years, maybe 4 years before anything was taken seriously.
I think di different ideas came and went, I imagine, because the Space Marines thing was Guyler's idea, wasn't it? Despite it also being something that Cameron had always wanted to do. It was apparently Guyler who I think it didn't he give the legend is he just said to Cameron Ripley plus Space Marines or something.
Something like that. I don't think he says it in the Superior Firepower documentary. I think he just refers to, like, as I mentioned, Southern Comfort and
Yeah.
Magnificent Seven.
But
But
that was an earlier that was sort of I think that was the 1982 or 3 version which they because there were several different attempts to get it going, weren't there? Because the head as you've mentioned that the head of Fox, Alan Ladd, who was a big supporter of Alien, left and was replaced by someone who didn't think
yes,
that
that's right. Yeah,
who bizarrely didn't think that it was a sound financial idea,
just
as
idiots, isn't it?
amongst other things. He was then replaced in I think was it 83 or something.
I think it was like two more replacements
Exactly. Yeah,
until
there were. I
someone.
think. I think that
Yeah,
there were after the guy who didn't want to make it, whose name I've forgotten, left. There was another guy who did want to make it but couldn't get it all together before the fourth head of Fox came in and did manage to get the ball rolling.
there's a lot of people being fired maybe here from
Yeah,
Fox, or
it's
maybe let go because of stupid
ridiculous how
ideas. But
studios work.
yeah, but Alan Ladd. I mean, Alan Ladd Jr. I mean, just like the guy was like a dream for directors, wasn't it? Because he really, if he believes in a project, he will support you all the way through and not let the executives, as the case with Lucas, not have them affect him. But yeah, Alan Ladd wants to do a sequel, but yeah, then he'd left. I think he'd gone on to do things like Outland, so he produced that. The Alan Ladd company
Yeah, he
he set up.
started his own company, didn't he? I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so which obviously that would also have been produced Blade Runner. But yeah, it's as you mentioned in the Alien commentary, Outland very much fits within this universe.
It fits
Same
right
production
in.
design, pretty much. And Peter Hyams has gone copy that film. I don't blame him though. I mean, that's the thing. That's what James Cameron said. This like Ridley Scott had set the bar so high, and to do a sequel because they said like it's interesting that Gale Anne Hurd and Cameron, when they interviewed kind of later on, like, oh, we didn't want the fans to think it was a remake at
Mm,
the time. You know, it was. I think it was. I presume most people were evident that it was going to be a sequel, but maybe they thought a remake in terms of like repeating the same
mm.
story, going back, to the same scenario. But
I mean,
and the tagline, this time it's war. I mean, it's that's Cameron's idea,
yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah.
So
It's he was very clever, I think, the way that he sort of formulated the ideas here to extrapolate and build on what worked in Alien, especially the themes of birth and so on, without without falling into that trap of just doing the same thing again. It's one of the best examples in cinema ever, I think, of how you do this kind of sequel.
for
It's
sure,
also interesting that the first one, Alien, is kind of all about birth, whereas this one, the follow-up, is kind of all about motherhood, the next stage
yeah,
of parenting, or however you want to look at it.
yeah, yeah,
It's a
yeah.
really natural evolution, and it's actually a much richer theme, I think, in this film. Strangely, despite this being an action movie, a crazy action movie, it's also kind of got more potent themes than the first film does.
I think because there's such a Ripley is now front and center, where she was written to be, like a supporting role, I
Mm,
suppose, and then sort of becomes the main character.
yeah, and also it's what they give her in terms of the child, whether or not you watch the version where she has a child who's died and that's really emphasized, and therefore Newt becomes the surrogate, or whether you just watch the version where she's has to act like a mother. It's also mirrored in the Alien Queen, because that, as opposed to the aliens just being sort of mindless reproductive systems.
Like ants or things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
What they refer to.
they're now given those very human-like characteristics, or the alien queen is anyway.
Mm.
It's all mirrored and it's all reflect. It's all really quite clever.
We say the third one probably deals with death. Is it the theme of that?
Yeah,
Is
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, to be honest,
yeah.
I don't really think about the third one too much. I haven't rewatched it, and I mean, I'm assuming we're going to do a commentary on it,
Yeah,
but
of
I'm
course.
kind of excited to see it again because I didn't rewatch it when I did the Alien videos.
There's a lot of good stuff in three. I mean, when I showed these films to my girlfriend, she'd obviously never seen them before, and she obviously enjoyed them a lot. And I told her about beforehand about Alien Three and how things do we turn out. But when she watched, I think she watched the extended cut first, not the theatrical one where the alien comes out of a dog, and the extended cut is actually out of an ox. And she thought it was amazing. She thought it was a really good film,
Hmm.
and I think she said it was kind of one she enjoyed the most. I think maybe because it's down to the sort of the predicament Ripley's in, and
Hmm.
she has to sacrifice herself to sort of stop Wayland getting the alien.
Hmm.
But but yes, it's kind of like people that grew our age, I suppose, who introduced Alien Three as the first film. There'd always be sort of a their special movie in some regard. Um, but but at the time when people had watched one and two theatrically or when they came out, we're just like so annoyed with number three.
Yeah, I
It's
didn't think much
depressing
of it.
ending.
It didn't. I don't. It never bothers me when sequels are, disappointing or not as good as the previous ones, because it doesn't. It's a freebie. You've still got the original movies.
Yeah,
They don't owe you anything to say it didn't. It didn't bother me, but I didn't have any time for it because, of course, then it was before David Fincher became David Fincher, and I do think that helps. You kind of give it the benefit of the doubt in a lot of ways, and
yeah,
you do
yeah.
look at it slightly differently, knowing what he went on to be.
Mm.
Their chemistry is just so good, isn't it? These two.
I think they're still in contact as well, which is good.
That's
You know,
nice. I like that.
yeah.
Is she a school teacher, I think, Carrie Henn now. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, she is. Yeah. It's
case.
it's it's, very, it's funny in a way, isn't it, where Newt knows more about the aliens than they do, or even Sigourney, because to that extent she knows what to do in terms of hiding, and it's if the that sort of the generator that's creating an atmosphere wasn't going to explode, then Newt would be in charge because you go right. Just have to go sit in my scummy room that's full of like rubbish and stuff for the next 17 hours or 14 days or whatever before help comes.
Do you remember wondering if Bishop was going to become, was going to be evil?
Yeah, there was always that kind of thing, wasn't it? Where he was an improved model, or it's programmed that he cannot harm humans. You know, but yeah, there was I mean, you can understand. I understood when I first saw it, like her Ripley's paranoia
Mm,
about him, but he's just like he's too polite and kind to, and he keeps his distance, doesn't he? Throughout a lot of it, away from. Or she tells him that very early on to stay away from her, but she comes to realise that he's actually really helpful, and he should be kind of making use of him more often. I think. There you go. They're driving to Battersea, or Acton Power Station in Battersea.
I don't think it's Battersea actually. I think it's
Is
in.
it? It's not
No,
Battersea. It was. I know it's
there's
Acton.
always been a lot of confusion because it looks a lot like Battersea. It's got I think it only had two of
Yeah.
those chimneys, but it's gone now. But I think it was near Wembley.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, this is the same place. They would film Batman, though, isn't it?
Yes, yeah,
The chemical plant.
yeah, Axis, yeah, yeah, which is incredible, really, because they didn't even redress it, did they? You can literally spot the same this shot here, this
The
exact shot
Batmobile
here,
comes thundering in, doesn't it?
from the shot from the same angle, same everything. It's identical. You can see those pipes in the background.
Well, because they said they had to spend a lot of money to remove asbestos from this all the areas they'd used because it was, you know, cause bodily harm or whatever to your breathing. And they spent so much money, and like they actually found out that it was healthier after they cleaned it all than it was in the
Yeah,
Pinewood Studios.
that, that makes sense actually. Pinewood is a bit of a toilet, to be honest, in a lot of ways, even now. And yeah, these staircases here are the exact staircases that Jack Nicholson runs up and down before he falls off the thing into the chemicals.
That's right.
Watch your spacing. You're
The
trying
roof
to
fell in on them, didn't it? I believe when they were they,
stay loose.
the that however many tons it was in the end, APC flying about the place. They reinforced the floor so it didn't fall through into the basement, but it shook the foundation so much the roof fell in on everyone apparently.
Jesus.
Too well. What is it, Hudson?
I mean, it's like the incredible foreground miniature, which blends with that is again like in Dune. You've got foreground miniatures. This one again, just it's seamless. You know,
Mm,
because the Fox were like, "Why are you spending so much money on sets?"
yeah.
No, no, it's actually a visual effect. You know, it's great, isn't it? I love that. It's pretty creepy. It's a really clever design, obviously, to use video footage of their security cameras or their sort of their point of view to show you. It's just a mix of styles, which hadn't been done before. I don't think at that
Yeah.
stage. I don't recall any movie before that doing something similar. But yeah, it's horrible. You can see kind of low resolution footage of people just like stuck up against a wall. But yeah, this is where the horror really kicks in, doesn't it? When the girl who just says "kill me," ugh, it's not good.
It's a really good the use of those like shoulder camera footage is a really good way of hiding some of the ropier models and effects as well. I'm all for that.
It's a dry heat. It's like secrete. Oh, it's like dribble or something.
I guess yeah, this is yeah. If you look at it from the perspective of these guys are used to like bug stomping, as in pretty much stomping on bugs. This is kind of when they realize the scale of the thing they're up against, I guess, and it explains their reaction to it.
9mm explosive tip caseless. Standard light armor piercing round one.
I'm surprised. Like they know everyone's inside there. That's where all the tracking devices are. I mean, it's just like it always frustrates me. Their slight stupidity to go in there. It's like the entrance is something that's so horrific. You'd be like, no, 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 no. I think we should go back. you know.
I can buy their overconfidence now. I think that they've done a lot to establish that.
Well, that's yeah, yeah. Of course, yeah. But again, it's fantastic tension building because again, it's getting the audience like, oh my god, why are they doing this? Why are they going in there?
I get because theoretically, I mean, we saw this first, so we wouldn't necessarily know it was coming. But for audiences at the time, they've seen Alien and they know this is now Aliens. It must have been quite a powerful thing.
I always have that line. What we supposed to use? Harsh language.
It's a great move casting Al Matthews as well as with his history as a real life.
Train the actors, didn't
Yeah,
he?
yeah.
So
I didn't realize it until recently. He was I don't know if this is true or not, but I read in some trivia somewhere that he was the first African American to reach the rank of sergeant on active duty or some.
really, huh.
Don't know exactly how they termed it, which seems surprising, but who knows?
It's such an ingenious idea to modify a Steadicam and put a gun on it. It's just I mean, that's what I think. That's kind of the smart gun and the pulse rifle. Mainly down because they've got a very fantastic look, but also the sound. I think the sound design in this is so unique, where because I think we've explored, but potentially another commentary, the sort of the Pinewood Studios reuse of sound effects, which we do get in this with the explosions. You get very similar sound you've heard in the Bond movie, whatever, of something exploding. And but the pulse rifles and smart guns, such a unique sound that it was such a cool way to hear these kind of type of guns.
And such a great effect as well. I love the muzzle flash that they kick out is incredible.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's something Cameron had to really do work on as well, wasn't it? I think he described it as wanting wanting it to look like a Tommy gun, and it turned out the only guns they could find that created that kind of muzzle flash were actual World War II Tommy guns. So that's what they're based on because it's essentially a deficiency. It's exactly what these kind of weapons wouldn't have. They were so badly made that a whole load of the propellant from the back of the bullet gets blasted down the barrel and ignites on its way out.
Well, she's the first to go, isn't she? The medic lady. Well, it's interesting when when the alien because it's very clever how they've hidden the aliens in the wall. When it reach out and grabs her, it has the ability to fly. It sort of just lifts her up. For ages. I think it's also trying to imply that it's climbing the wall, but it's just someone on wires getting pulled up.
It's just
Oh,
horrible.
oh no! It looks like she's got marmalade on her face and stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's so clever, cutting back to video footage, then come back to 35, and oh man, yeah,
and to Ripley's reaction as well. That's proper PTSD triggering.
yeah. And obviously she's got the face huggers are improved in this. Well, the smaller alien, sorry, because actually got arms.
Yeah.
Like in the '79 film, it's just like just a willy with a mouth, isn't it? Really?
I think I said this in commentary for that first film. It is for me that's the one bit in the first film that is just a complete failure. I don't that stomach bursting scenes like that. That's the key to the movie, but it's
Yeah.
completely unconvincing to me in so many different
Well,
ways.
when you see the alien, sorry.
Yeah, well, when you see the alien, but also like the details of it, like the way that when if an alien were to burst out of your chest, it's not going to come through your t-shirt unless it's got a razor blade on its head. It's going to push the t-shirt up. Do you know what I mean? It's going to look like a little ghost coming. These little, just so many little details around that, but particularly the way it moves. It always reminds me of Spaceballs. when it whizzes along the counter. It doesn't look. Has it got legs? How is it moving? It looks like a Muppet.
I see Gorman here has completely dropped the ball, isn't he? You know, his lack of experience
Yeah.
is completely just like it just shows, and it's weird that they've, you know, in the sort of the context of the story that they've given this guy who has had much experience to actually lead this team. You know, it seems that these kind of they're basically just like just throwaway Marines.
Yeah.
You know, they're not special in any way. You know?
Is there an argument? Well, is there an argument to be made that they didn't want this team to succeed, and so they deliberately gave it a crap leader? They didn't want the aliens to be killed. It's so well edited, this sequence, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's Ray Lovejoy did this. He did 2001: Space Odyssey. I think he would edit Batman.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That through road again, from bizarrely from 2001 to Aliens to Batman, with bits of James Bond sprinkled in here and there. Just watching Burke all the time. What's his reaction? Is this what he wants to happen, or?
Oh my god, yeah, it's complete shambles, isn't it? This is one of my favourite performances now from Sigourney when she takes over. She's like, "Fuck!" Just like grabs the car, you know, steers it off, and the music kicks in. It's such an amazing sequence. I just, yeah. And James Horner's score kicks in.
This plays out exactly the same in a Bruno Mattei movie called Zombies: The Beginning, which is almost a shot-for-shot remake of Aliens. This scene it's done exactly the same, except they're in a tiny little VW van parked in the woods. It's just so funny when the Ripley character leaps into the seat and jams it into gear, and he's this little van wobbling about as it trundles off.
Oh dear.
Yes.
It's fuck. She's like, yeah, love it. Oh god.
Safety first.
Yeah. A child booster seat in this car.
I can almost hear the Batman theme music at this point.
He drops those bombs and he bong bong.
Yeah, the little wheel rims, yeah.
It's that Derek Medding's miniature blow up. It's a weird way to steer it, isn't it? Because it's like two levers, isn't it? To sort of steer it.
It is a cool vehicle, though.
Yeah, man.
It looks from some angles. It's only just occurred to me. It looks slightly like that. What's that stupid thing Elon Musk's just? Is it a Cybertruck or something?
The wheels look very similar. The design of the sort of the hubcaps on it.
Yeah, that's the same sort of.
It's like summing it.
Angular. It looks like it's been designed by a teenage boy, basically.
He's played too many video games, you know.
Did you see him launching it when he got the guy at the audience to throw a brick at it straight through the window?
X marks the spot, I suppose. Oh no, Drake's gonna get some piss sprayed on his face. Yeah, because they said this sequence here when they're filming it, because you've got the fire on set, and they just kept like obviously run out of oxygen because the fire would just zap away the oxygen. They'd be like, can't breathe, you know. So they have to take the roof off the car so that the smoke come out. Oh, this bit's brilliant.
This is where you get this payoff from how well established all of these individual characters, individual personas are. Drake and
Yeah,
Vasquez
yeah,
and
yeah.
everyone else. It's just
Because
in
you
the
already instantly care about
yeah,
them,
you
you know.
care about them, and it makes I don't all they're all acting in a way that makes complete sense given the nature of their character, and it just gives everything such a texture and depth.
Oh, for sure. It's that was one of the major faults, wasn't it, of Alien versus Predator? Was that you didn't give a flying fuck about the human characters, even the main lead. Don't care. I don't care if she dies. I think it'd be better if she did die. You know, the Predator was win by himself. You know, but this character, you don't want anyone to die in this. Maybe at the time, maybe Gorman, you probably think, no, he's a prick. I don't care. And
Burke, yeah, I want to see Burke getting melted by acid by this point, big time.
was
Gorman's
he like?
just in
Is inexperienced, incompetent man, you know, but he does, you know, redeem himself.
he's not malevolent, he's just useless.
No, just he's like one of those posh lads. He gets a job and he's completely useless, but his dad knew someone at the company. You know?
It's I mean, Cameron almost fired the editor. I've forgotten his name already. Almost fired the editor, didn't he? Because it was
But Ray Lovejoy.
Ray Lovejoy, yeah. Because he was everything he did was incredibly well, it had no vitality. It was a slow paced. Apparently, he was used to movies like 2001, I guess, with a very different energy. And it was, I think it was that sequence. I think it was that sequence that he heard the rumor that he was possibly on the way out. So he spent the weekend recutting a scene completely differently to how he'd approached everything. And Cameron absolutely loved it, and everything was back on track, and all was well again.
Well, as Galen Hurd said, the original cut by Ray Lovejoy was quite close to what Cameron wanted.
Mm.
Like, obviously, you know, that's the first cut and it needs to
Yeah,
get
by
refined and
the
trimmed
end of
down.
the
But
yeah,
yeah, so it probably would have been like because they shot so much footage, and not enough time to really go through it all and to sort of pick up the pace and do silly amount of hours. But 16-day workload 7 days a week. So 16 hours a day, seven days a week. That's pretty tough.
yeah.
And it's like winter as well. You're editing all this. Constant colds going around. What's happening?
God, there's a lot of tea breaks in a 16-hour day.
Yeah. I need another pee. I've had 4 cups of tea today. Cameron, like, you're not going anywhere. You're gonna piss into that bottle over there. What?
When there's stories of him buying up the entire tea trolley, so there's no tea left for anyone to. I
Well,
can't.
basically, yeah, because he bought it all, then kicked it over, and he said, right, the rule is that everyone, when it's lunchtime or whatever, someone nominates someone to go get everything, get all the food, and then deliver it to them, right? You know. But I just love how he goes up to the tea lady. He goes, so how much for all of it? She goes, oh, what? She's like, oh, I don't know, dear. This boy boys all just go, fucking thing, and kicks it over.
Speaking as a non-tea drinker, I can relate to the frustration of everything having to grind to a halt every couple of hours.
Oh, I can't function without a cup of tea in the morning. I'll be
No,
useless.
my wife's the same. I'm a crap Briton, basically. I don't, apart from having bad teeth, I don't fulfill any of the stereotypes.
So you're a coffee man, are you?
No, I don't drink any hot drinks at all, which I know you see in America you can say that to people and they don't freak out, but like, I've almost been disowned by my family for this position. And it's like, well, but what do you do at 11 o'clock? I don't know. Cope.
Oh dear. What do you drink then? It's just
Beer,
water, is it, Rob, in
beer.
the morning? Not in the
Largely,
morning.
no, no, yeah. Literally, I apart from beer and water and wine, I literally don't drink anything. I don't drink spirits. I don't drink any hot drinks at all. I don't.
You're a rare breed, Rob. And people always kick off about this front projection shot or rear projection when it crashes and they have to duck out the way. I think it always looks brilliant. People are like, oh, it looks dated. I'm like, what are we talking about?
I love it because it's in camera, but I don't buy it, and I never did, to be honest.
Oh man, I did. I thought it was wicked.
If memory serves, it's quite desaturated, and I can't remember now, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit too bright. Maybe so it gives
that
away. I think we'll see in a second anyway. But it's such a. I mean, I think it's John Richardson did this miniature. He's a Bond guy as well, and was in multiple takes to get it to actually land in the correct way, then explode. And then obviously bear in mind that you've got the timed explosives with the frame rate of the film not being at 24 frames, but actually a higher frame speed. It's just the calculations. It's mental.
Yeah, they had a lot of problems, I think, with the screens you see as well in the background because see, that's there just isn't enough contrast in that rear projection to my eye. Perhaps saturation isn't quite the right word. I think it's more contrast, but it is what it is. It's not a problem, is it? It's not.
Yeah.
If it was done now in CG, it would it would stand out more probably to me.
When you heard that explosion, then you hear that metal pipe hit the floor, and and every time I watch this on surround sound, that panning of that sound effect of the metal pipe is so good. It feels like it's in the room. It's mental. It was on Bill's face. It's like, what the fuck? It's like when he gets up though, he's like, what?
And the spitting is like, I always imagine that they shot that like 10 times, and then at the end Cameron went, okay, now let's just do one where it's really over the top, and that's the one they used.
Bill's reaction there is like when you see Loaded Weapon 1 where Bruce Willis his beachfront probably gets blown up by mistake, and he wakes up and he's like, what the? It's like, no, it's down there. It's like, no problem. It's like,
in contrast with the two people who actually have their shit together. Completely still, thoughtful, what we're going to do now. That's the mostly, isn't it?
yeah, I think the tagline should have been the mostly come out at night, mostly.
You've seen the South Park episode where Cartman keeps saying that. It just kills me. Mostly.
See, there's a bit of the purple lighting scheme still kicked into the grade here a little bit. It's just been very much just kind of brightened up and reduced, but it's there's still a little bit of colour there.
Oh yeah, in the whole scene actually. Yeah, so is it just harder to dial out of this?
I think so. Yeah.
He's so sweaty and horrible, that helmet.
But do you think there's more aliens, in the movie than there is actual people out of the colony who they've impregnated with the facehuggers?
That's a good point, yeah.
There should be X amount of people. Right, okay, then we've got to kill X amount of aliens. How much ammunition do we have left to kill 75 people? I think explosives would be the best thing to use.
Although that would be quite difficult with the acid for blood, creating an acid bomb.
Yeah.
What's your theory for why they look different? Or it doesn't even need to be a theory, because obviously Cameron chose to have these ridges in the head, in the cranium. That's the most prominent difference.
They wanted, that was the big change, because they didn't want to have the weirder translucent kind of plastic piece over the head that will crack. They would have to keep replacing.
Is that true? 'Cause I've read that reason, and I've also read, I think more often and more believably to my mind, that Cameron simply saw an incomplete model before they'd put that piece on, and loved the ridges that were there naturally, and wanted to keep them.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I
don't get why.
A very strong argument.
I mean, ultimately, if they wanted a smooth cranium, They could have had one. Surely they weren't limited by the fact that they couldn't figure out a way to do it where it wouldn't break.
Well, the aliens are certainly more bulky in this, aren't they? Because
Mm.
the original actor in the first film was very thin. So they had like, obviously you had dancers in this, stunt people to sort of do the jumping around and crawling up things with wires and. But I think with the Queen though, I think they've created a new type of alien where it's like these are warrior aliens,
Well, yeah, that's one of the theories. Yeah,
and there were supposed to be different coloured aliens, like white ones near the Queen, like the guards or something like that. I recall some sort of design thing they were talking about where the aliens near the Queen are slightly different.
Okay,
Ones that maybe protect the eggs.
right. Okay.
Yeah, but they're not visually different in the film. That's what I'm saying. That
Yeah, yeah,
with the ones that protect the Queen and ones that are used as just fodder to get killed. But yeah, there is a slight change. But I think there's kind of natural change. I think it's kind of fine. But because they only had one, didn't they? One in the first one, so they can make it far more detailed.
yeah.
And because it's had like, I still love the skull, like human skull
Mm,
of the first one. That's kind of there, very because of the plastic piece over that's translucent. You can see the skull eyes.
yeah.
That has no eyes there, but it's just like, oh, it's kind of creepy as fuck.
It was always a minor bugbear of mine that it looks different because I can't
Mm.
I can't quite buy the idea that this is a different type of alien somehow because they come from the same eggs. Unless
Yeah,
I suppose there could be many different eggs, and it just so happened that the one that hatched in the first film was that type. But then I read a thing last year sometime about the theory, and it's just a fan theory. There's no evidence for it. That of course the alien in Alien is only like a few days old at its oldest point, whereas these have been knocking about for quite a while. So maybe it's just a natural part of their bodies change as they grow. Maybe that's it. And I find that believable.
it's the thing when you sort of delve deep into fan fiction, and it just becomes a bit like,
These things are important, damn it.
when you have arguments with people about like talking about stuff that's not in the film, and you're just like, well, it's not in the film. It's not in the film, then, is it? Well, yeah, but in this comic, whatever. No, 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 no.
Yeah. Oh,
If it's in some
yeah.
fucking comic, I can sod off. If it's not in the film, it's not in the film. You can't.
Everything in the Star Wars universe that's justified by a novel can piss off.
Arguing about fucking Wookiees and stuff and Ewoks. Like,
Just
oh
accept
god.
almost nothing makes sense in the Star Wars universe and move on.
My friend gets frustrated with the sort of spin-off stories of aliens where everyone's connected. This person's like the cousin of Hicks or Newt or whatever, or like Vasquez. I'm like, oh really?
That's another Star Wars trick, isn't it? Yeah.
This whole universe with billions of people in it, or a planet on Earth, and then this whole other alien world. Someone's got a brother out there, or a sister, or
It
cousins. Oh,
reflects a real
weird.
lack of confidence in the authors of these stories that the audience need to have some kind of connection to relate to anybody.
Yeah, yeah. That's unfortunate. The things with fan fiction. It's someone doesn't generally have the experience of writing. That's why I'm not a writer in that regard. I'm not trained for that, or that skill set to write a novel or anything like that, or short stories. I mean, this is a great little moment here where she's like, trying to really be her mother here.
Mhm.
She's just a little bit, um, you know, doesn't know her that well. But it's the way she says, did you have a daughter or something like that, or what happened to her? She
Yeah.
says, it's very sort of the way the way Carrie Henn delivers it. It's very natural.
The way that whole aspect of the story is dealt with is just superb. I think that, I was saying earlier,
Mm.
just because it doesn't weigh things down emotionally. It doesn't, it'd be very easy, especially audience members with kids. I think it'd be very easy for it to be a real downer, frankly. The fact that she's what she's dealing with there, and it's believable, and it's just judged in exactly the right way emotionally that it doesn't kill things dead. It just carries weight.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Key plot device moment there.
Yeah, because Alien doesn't have these moments. It's more about when it comes to a breather, the sort of in between the
Mm.
horror. It's more about what do we do?
Exactly. Yeah, it's part of what's so fascinating about this because it's the key difference that you're going to go to between Alien and Aliens is this is all bombastic and action-fied and so on, but it's far more emotional as well. It's much more emotionally engaging than the first film.
Yeah, yeah.
They're cold, distant characters on the whole in Alien, whereas I mean scenes like
Mm.
this, powerful as hell, really.
Because in the first one, it's all about the cat.
Yeah.
Now it's about you.
That's a really good analogy, actually. Yeah.
Don't leave the cat, all right? I'll do the same thing. One was a massive Nostromo, and there's like one of my cats is left. I'll go running back for it.
It's interesting because both Ridley Scott and James Cameron are huge fans of 2001: A Space Odyssey, but it's as if Ridley Scott really drew on it for the first film, and Cameron was kind of, I don't know, I see no real inspiration directly in this from
Well,
2001.
you've got this. Anything you've got is the Soloco, that gunship that kind of moves slowly. Everything's
I
slow.
suppose, yeah, I
Everything's
suppose that kind of, yeah, the way that,
approach, but it's not like Star Wars where it's moving quick and
yeah.
stuff like that. Well, as Ron Cobb said, this was like the in the documentary from a number of years ago where he said like Vietnam was still in the consciousness of people. That was still talked about. Also, we had Rambo First Blood in '82, so we kind of really sort of hammered home how people were treated when they returned from war. And this was like again taking that Vietnam kind of scenario and put it in a future world setting, and with monsters as the enemy. And
I mean, arguably, America's period of great analysis of the Vietnam War through popular entertainment was slap bang in the middle of the 80s. It wasn't immediately
it
afterwards.
was, yeah. It's weird, isn't it? How it took time to people to realise that the mistakes that were made, and Rambo 2 was like a fantasy, wasn't it, where it had to save the people that were left behind.
Yeah, pretty much the same time as, well, it was maybe a year or two later, but Full Metal Jacket was literally, as we've said, literally being shot at the same time as this. And a lot of the a lot of the reasons why Cameron couldn't ditch some of the crew people he wanted to ditch was because there were a couple of other major productions going on at the same time, one of which being Full Metal Jacket, which meant there simply weren't enough people around to replace them with.
Well, some of the actors had auditioned for Full Metal
Yeah,
Jacket.
Rico Ross was turned down a role in Full Metal Jacket to do this instead. Amusingly, there was meant to be, I think it was kind of a 2 week or a 2 month supposed gap between when he was meant to be finished and when he was meant to start on this. And he went to Kubrick and said, "Look, I've got this great role, this great opportunity. Can you guarantee I'll be out by then?" And Kubrick said, "I'm sorry. All I can say is you should be, but I can't guarantee it." And of course, this was in cinemas when Full Metal Jacket was still shooting because Kubrick's crazy.
I suppose Warner Brothers let him kind of shoot for so long. It's mad, but
Well, he did it. He did it. A Kubrick set was a very cheap production. He had a surprisingly limited, you know, crew and so on, and he didn't. He
he burnt through film though,
yeah.
quick. So many takes. 90 takes, someone walking in a room. Like, oh my god! You'd be like, you go insane. Also, yeah, we just saw here, with the realization that there is a queen laying these eggs, which Covenant would end up screwing up
Mm.
the legacy of Alien and the sort of the life cycle in some way, and everyone was very angry, and probably Cameron as well, But obviously, Burke has revealed that. Well, she's found out that Burke had told him to go investigate, knowing there was in a hostile situation, and wanted to make a bit of money. The yuppie mentality.
Yeah. I thought I thought you meant Ridley Scott then.
Because obviously this is an extended scene as well, but they don't. When they show you an alien, it's just a repeated shot from earlier when they're escaping from the hive.
Yeah,
So they didn't actually shoot anything for that tunnel of the alien being shot.
you don't. I don't personally. I don't really notice other than that huge chunk at the beginning, I don't really notice the here and there. There's a bit where the timing obviously feels different, but I'm not sort of consciously aware of a shot that isn't in the original that is in this very often.
Yeah, because this is all kind of blends in quite nicely. It's just basically cut for time, but obviously the bit later on when Hicks reveals his name to Ripley, his first name, which is Dwayne.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that scene is a
Oh right, it's Dwayne, is it? You don't look like a Dwayne to me.
oh come on, The Rock's reclaimed that name.
I know, yeah, but I don't know him, Hicks, and how Michael Bean is. I don't know. You probably just call him. I don't know. What would you call him? Like Hayden or something? I don't know.
Kyle.
Kyle. Oh man, if it was Kyle, everyone would be like, "Oh my God, it's like the same universe."
There were originally going to be a couple of connections, weren't there? God, what was it? Yeah, the androids were originally going to have been made by Cyberdyne. They were going to actually mention Cyberdyne, and it's the name that I can't remember what the company responsible for the androids is called now, but it's really similar.
Yeah.
It's very, very similar to Cyberdyne. That's proper Tarantino style world building. That's kind of fun
Yeah.
though. I don't see any reason not to do that.
This is the bit here, isn't it? We were talking about earlier in terms of like, Bill Paxton characters getting like just short tempered and angry, doesn't know what to do, not thinking clearly, and she's just like you gotta. She's one who's thinking logically.
Yeah, well, it's downtime, isn't it? This is what it, he's effectively, ironically, what they're dealing with in Full Metal Jacket is kind of reflected here. He's programmed to be a soldier. He's programmed to be knee deep in the shit, shooting at stuff. And when that's what he's got to do, he does it and he does it well. But here, what's his program? He has no programming for this, so he breaks down.
Yes, I can fit into that.
Uh, I'm not claustrophobic, but this bit always leaves me a little bit. It's just a tiny bit too small.
Yeah, yeah. You got to be proper slim to get in there.
Always makes me think of Die Hard 2. This bit. It's just like that scene where they have to go out to the antenna array or whatever it's called.
Oh, Lance Henriksen's face was very scary there with the light just shining up towards him.
Yeah, these are the screens that I think that they had trouble with because they were using British TVs, which were 25 frames per second.
What, PAL?
Yeah, the PAL systems, 25 frames per second, and obviously they filmed so all the scenes with these monitors in the background were shot at 25 frames per second, so they're going to run slightly slower.
Well, 25 frames would be faster by a little bit, yeah. Because when I was a kid watching a movie, you're so familiar with on British TV, and you see like an American NTSC DVD or something, and everyone's talking very slowly. It's like actually that's the actual real pitch of their voice. But when you go back to watching UK TV, like Simpsons, what Simpsons, like a DVD, American DVD, and you hear them talk on normal UK TV, everyone's like slightly on helium.
I've never noticed that. Isn't that funny? I've
Takes
never
a little bit
noticed.
while to get back used to get used to it again.
It's so confusing, isn't it? It's like the way that films can for every 25, so your typical movie is going to have like a 3 or 4 minute runtime difference when it's shown on British TV as opposed to when it's screened in the cinema or back in the days of I don't know if it's the same now actually with digital.
A film that's technically 93 minutes or 92 would be like 89 minutes, with PAL. But PAL TV was a better format than NTSC.
Yeah, and there's 4 or 5 minutes you save, just about enough to make a cup of tea.
Exactly. We've got to stay frosty. He's got to drink gallons of coffee. You'd be a bit screwed, actually, Rob. You wouldn't be drinking any coffee. So you'd be like fast asleep. You'd be useless at this point.
I'd be. They wouldn't be talking to me anyway. They'd freak who doesn't drink coffee. I'd be an outcast in this set.
I'll do us both. Listen, let's just make sure it doesn't come to that. All right? Hey, I want to introduce you to a personal friend of mine. This is an M41A pulse rifle, 10 millimeter. An over and under.
So my friends often think that Hicks is not entirely focused. He's more focused on trying to flirt with Ripley.
It's a very it's I've always thought he's kind of doing a lot of what he did in Terminator, in that he's got a really important job to do and he's going to do it, but at the same time he's kind of lusting after her, but he's also thinking, even if I didn't have a job to do, I wouldn't have a chance because she's kind of awesome. It's almost exactly the same kind of situation in a way.
Do you think there's chemistry between the two?
That's a good question. I don't think there needs to be romantic chemistry, and I'm not sure there is, to be honest. Considering I think we're supposed to think that under normal circumstances, Ripley might actually be interested. I don't necessarily buy it.
By the third one, she sleeps with Charles Dance because she's just like, she hasn't had sex in ages. So and he's like, thank you.
Yeah, Jones is the only person she shared a bed with in the last century. I love that band. That bandage just makes Gorman look so. It somehow just emphasizes how useless he is. That's an idiot bandage. That's a bandage you give to someone when you don't want them to be taken seriously.
I mean, it's interesting, like, with this production design in particular, it's like Red Dwarf really went to town on this, copying everything they could from Aliens and
That's
Alien.
a good point, yeah. Especially the first couple of seasons where everything is completely grey within Red
season
Dwarf.
3 onwards, season 3 onwards, it just goes very much like, we want it to look like Aliens,
Oh. I mean, this is just the heart of the movie, isn't it? Can you imagine not having Newt in this film?
Yeah, you wouldn't really. Ripley wouldn't have much to do.
No.
She would just basically be barking orders.
And there'd be such a huge aspect missing. Normally, I'm all for removing children from films. They ideally shouldn't even be in the background, and certainly shouldn't be in the audience. But this just wouldn't work at all without her.
Yeah, kids can often down to their performance, can ruin a movie.
Yeah, I'm not talking about stuff like The Goonies or whatever, which is about kids, but
it's things like, I don't know, the kid in Sudden Death I find really annoying. Both of the kids in that film.
God, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I would have thrown him into a room with a grenade. See you later, kids. Or catch this ball.
But I mean, even when they're really good, they so often don't really seem to be essential to much. Like I haven't thought this through, so I might regret saying it. But Temple of Doom. Short Round's great, brilliant. But if you take him out of the movie, it doesn't destroy everything. It doesn't.
No.
Well,
he sort of becomes like Robin to Batman, doesn't he? In that film, he's a little bit more like, a little bit more useless, I suppose.
He has value in that he makes a lot of scenes really funny, and he's a great character. And he's, I'm not saying he's not good, and I'm glad he's there.
Because it's funny watching Harrison Ford argue with a child.
Yeah, the card cheating scene is one of the best scenes involving a child ever.
I think when a sort of very dramatic role is kind of left on the shoulders of a child, it's tough to get the audience to fully buy it. But I think only a few handful of directors can make children work really well, and that's probably Spielberg and Richard Donner, and probably Chris Columbus.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Although, yeah, Harry Potter would probably be improved without children as well. Thinking about it.
But yeah, they were proper wooden, weren't they, in the first one?
Oh,
And the second one does a better job. But
yeah,
oh dear, naughty Burke.
he's so good at that kind of. It's he knows he's winging it, and he knows he's taking the piss, and he's communicating it brilliantly.
Every little moment he's going to try and take advantage of, isn't it? Even when he knows really he's kind of fucked. The risk of doing that in front of those Marines as well could literally just kill him.
Yeah.
This is like, this is so clever how they do this, isn't it? With the face huggers, and obviously when it jumps, I know it's kind of reverse photography, but it's the one where the scene where she's like falls back, and you see that shot with the face huggers go towards camera. It's amazing.
Yeah, another great bit of editing.
Because in the third one, in the extended cut, it's introduced that there is a super face hugger. They're called. They're just ginormous ones. They lay the queen eggs. But in this one, they're all obviously it doesn't not a thing.
Yeah, that's one thing that's never, to my knowledge anyway, satisfactorily explained. Really, what leads to a queen, or is it? I suppose in nature, it just.
It'd be a random thing. I suppose it'd be like, as I mentioned earlier about bees, things like that. I presume the queen will just instantly start laying eggs. There's no male, like the king alien. Maybe there's one in the comics. I don't know. And it has like it has like a really long beard or something like that.
Yeah, we shouldn't be talking about this without reading every single comic novelization.
The queen, it would just be like it won't be as big as the queen. It would be smaller, but just have massive like testicles.
Yeah, in keeping with all the themes of femininity and masculinity in this. Yeah,
Just drags his huge balls everywhere.
sound effects just fantastic.
He just wastes so much ammo in killing one facehugger. That's what you do, though, isn't it? Just like even in the video games, you're like, shoot everything.
It all ties in with what I'm saying about he's just been hanging around waiting for some shit to deal with, and he's finally got some shit to deal with, and by God, he's going to deal with it.
Burke, she goes.
Yeah, I never noticed that before. She was saying Burke, wasn't she?
Yeah, she says it in a minute. Yeah. Well, that was Cameron's bit, wasn't it? The family kind of that unity sort of bit there was Hicks, her, and Newt.
That David Fincher just threw out the window.
So this is bollocks. But I think it was all about the third one was going back to the first one, wasn't it? One alien scenario, you limited resources.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they try to use harsh language, because they've all got loads of British people swearing at it, running around with scissors.
Vasquez always looks. I always think Vasquez looks like she just wants to shoot him in the face there and then.
Oh yeah. You're dark meat, pal.
Is that an ad lib? Do you think? Have you ever read the original?
I don't know. I mean, he ad libs. Okay, when they get pulled, when he's Bill Paxton just loses his temper, starts shooting them all, and he's basically swearing.
Yeah.
He's like, "Come on, you next, come on!" But in the recording, they couldn't understand what he said.
Yes.
So they had to loop it in what they thought he said. So when you still see it, it still feels slightly out of sync.
I remember hearing that explanation, and I'd always noticed that as well, that it didn't quite seem properly in sync.
Yeah.
But a lot of his famous one-liners are apparently ad-libs, aren't they?
I wouldn't be surprised at all. It's his bill here. He comes up with some beauties, doesn't he? God, he was so bloody good under Cameron's direction. I mean, I think he's even better in True Lies. You know,
Yes, yeah,
she can
yeah.
suck start a leaf
To
blower.
be honest,
You
I'm
know.
not quite as big of a fan of True Lies as most people are, but
Mm.
he is my number one reason to watch it.
Oh yeah.
That's a good question, actually. Where does this fit into Cameron's rankings? Would you say where does Alien sit?
In terms of his best kind of
And
movies,
so
right?
it's yeah, in terms of if you were to rank Cameron's best movies
Probably number two,
after
I'd
Terminator.
say. Yeah, I think the Terminator's still.
Yeah, yeah. I'd certainly go with Terminator as number one. I'm not sure whether I'd go with T2 next or this.
I'd go with this over T2.
Hmm.
I think, because T2, you know, obviously we did watch the extended cut, but it does have its lull points when they're in Mexico or whatever. For me, it's just like it comes a little bit of a grinding halt
Yeah,
where Aliens keeps up the pace, you know, and there's enough characters there to sort of keep you engaged.
yeah.
Where it's very much like isolated to John Connor and the Terminator.
I think I could easily argue that this was a better film than Terminator 2. But I wonder if I think I've got
I
a
think
more
story wise it
yeah.
is.
Oh
Story
yeah, I
wise
think
it is,
it's
yeah.
a cleaner film in a lot of ways.
And it's not repeating the previous
Yeah,
movie where T2 is repeating. So
I've got a real emotional connection to T2 though. I've probably seen it more than any of his others.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's all subjective, but objectively, I think in terms of like, I don't know, in terms of critical praise, I don't know. I think maybe Titanic is probably his one that most people have seen. Maybe Avatar really, that most people,
Yeah, I
population
don't
have
know. Yeah,
seen.
that's a
Maybe
depressing thought, isn't it? Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate Titanic for all its production values and quality, but it's not a story for me. But it's well, you know, he nailed it on the head with it made a movie that appealed to women, which most filmmakers struggle to really tackle that. You know, George Lucas said if you made a movie dedicated for women, you'd be be one of the most powerful
Yeah.
directors. And well, here you
And in
go.
Avatar, he made one that appealed to millions of people who, as far as I can tell, don't exist. Because how the hell are those two movies two of the most seen movies? I don't know anyone who's seen the second one, really. Well, yeah, obviously I do, but
They appeal to non-speaking English people as well.
I guess that's probably it, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it
where it
must be
came
it.
from. I mean, come on, Hicks missed the vital bit of repairing, just above them.
And they're working to this scanner system without having thought, oh, hang on, the world's three-dimensional, isn't it? The scanner apparently doesn't know that, and they've forgotten.
Oh, it's my favourite bit in the film. I was to watch this bit so much. Just like when I was a bit smoking the old wacky backy and got the surround sound on when I had DVD for the first time. It's like, oh, it's been so fucking good. Just like, oh, go back, watch it again. When the music James Horner scored like kicks in, this rock set, and you see like, Bill Paxton gets pulled through the floor, and then like Aiden jumps over and Hicks fucking shoots it. It's like, it's such good editing.
Yeah, I was just going to say again the editing. Actually, this is the one viewing when I've really noticed just how incredible the editing is.
Really quick cuts to hide the sort of, the actors in the suits. Go motherfucker. Oh yeah. Oh no! I remember being so upset as a young teen.
Yeah,
Bill going, it's like, no, not Bill, not fucking
and the
Bill.
music really wants us to feel it too.
Yeah.
I remember being really upset about Vasquez dying as well. I think that was probably the death that
Oh
hit me
yeah, all of them.
hardest.
Even with Gorman, even though Gorman was a complete plonker earlier, he's you care about him.
I must admit to having a bit of a mild thing for women with guns, and there's a
Be
yeah.
gentle.
This is a good scene for that. 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 This is a good scene for that I know it sounds pathetic and it makes me sound like a 14-year-old boy, but
When a deleted scene that was on the Blu-ray that you find Burke was in the hive, wasn't he?
oh
And
yes.
Ripley gives him a little grenade to
Yeah, to end
kill
it all,
himself with.
yeah.
Yeah, such an idiot, isn't he? Was it like Carrie Henn? Sorry, she said the little bit where she slides down the in the tunnel bit as that sort of rotating thing. She kept messing up on purpose so she could do it again. You know, James Cameron's like, oh, okay, it catches on to what she's up to. You know, he's like, right, okay, you've got to do it serious now. Running out of time. As Newt said, she is the best at crawling through tunnels earlier. Her brother wasn't very good, apparently.
I see, boys are useless. The score is doing a really good job here as well, isn't it? It's really helped build everything.
So it's just that very simplistic military march, isn't it? That but I think that a lot of Horner's score was kind of cut and pasted around to certain scenes that were
Yeah,
scored differently. Or
it's a lot. There's
so,
a lot of controversy in a way, isn't there, about the score in general, for whether it's Horner completely falling out with Cameron and swearing he'd never work with him again because he wasn't given enough time to do it, and Cameron kind of tearing it up and using bits and pieces, and a lot of it is clearly from Star Trek 2 and 3 as well, frankly.
yeah, there is. Yeah,
This is Gale Ann Hurd, isn't it? These close-ups.
surf foot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. In the film. They split up the footage twice. You know, when they think there's something in beginning, they burst the door. It just says hamsters. They speed up the footage there, and they speed up the footage again here when she shoots Jane and then she kicks it off
Oh
her.
yeah,
You know,
the that close-up then looked that way too.
yeah, it's like the old Bond films. So they speed up a
Yeah.
fight. You know, it sort of makes me laugh. It's like Thunderball. God, it goes full Benny Hill. You know.
Yeah, car chases in particular as well. As a kid, it's American TV shows as well. There's the number of times there are all those cliches that were that, yeah, the footage was clearly speeded up. You heard squealing tires on dirt roads, and you always knew someone was going to have to do a big power slide or a 180 because suddenly the road would be soaking wet on a sunny day. I love those old cliches.
Come on, Rob. There must be some Murder She Wrote facts you can connect with aliens. Had quite a few with Robocop. That would have been how we should have advertised it on social media. Murder She Wrote crosses with Robocop.
I think because it was a British production, those kind of vague connections tend to end up going towards British soap operas no one's going to be interested in, including me.
Yeah,
I know that both of Newt's parents, the Americans, in Britain doing American, they've I remember noticing when I looked them up years ago that they've both done a lot of Emmerdale and EastEnders and stuff like that. But sadly, Murder She Wrote didn't come to Britain whenever they pretended they were filming here. It was clearly not here with stock footage from the late 60s to represent Britain.
yeah.
Jess had an English cousin, you see, who was also played by Angela Lansbury. They often had episodes set in London.
This part here actually was really good. Actually, this part here, they've taken out the score. There's no score for this piece, so it's just clanking metal and the tracker. It's really good because also he sort of takes away some of the tension to a certain degree. You think, oh, they're not being chased, but then he reveals that they're getting very close now. Just think, oh God, you can't hear anything, but it's that sort of thing where you can't see it, you can't hear it, but it's getting there. You know, it's
This is a really effective sequence as well.
oh, bless her when she's like, okay, she's like rubbing her the little doll's head. God, it's good direction. Yeah, I mean, as anyone in a situation like this, even though she's not your daughter, you've known her for 12 hours at most, but that sort of parenting instincts will kick in to any human, I think, really.
Yeah.
That's the same, same with animals and stuff. You got to save them.
That's part of getting old. I think part of growing up is realizing you're starting to get as sympathetic towards children as you are animals. Basically, that's certainly as a younger person, I didn't care about the kids.
When you're a grumpy teenager like Kevin from Harry Enfield, just like, what? I'm not going to fuck them. All for one and one for all, I say.
It's still kind of more acceptable to kill a child in a movie than a dog, though. When you think about it,
It is. It is. They cut away. They always cut away, don't they? While watching the new TV show Fallout, you see someone stab a dog, but you see it about to happen, then it cuts to a reaction.
Yeah,
because people don't want to see that.
Exactly. Yeah, no one wants to see that. They're not stupid.
Because animals are defenseless, just a large degree.
And they're less likely to have pissed you off at some point in the last few days as well, I find.
But your dog's just like lovingly stupid. Constantly happy. It's a walking brush.
Honestly, it's ridiculous.
But in the future, lifts still don't work properly. Press it once, don't fucking work.
Another funny little airport vehicle there. It is odd how you just don't. Oh, I don't really notice it, but every now and again they just drop in a completely modern, a completely current, modern to now vehicle in the distant future, and
I suppose because it looks quite modern and futuristic, even for the time, you think, oh, you get away with it.
I guess as well, it's not like a really cohesive. Well, it's a real life, ragged around the edges future. It's like like Star Trek. Everything has to look a certain way because the future has a very particular look. Whereas this is more of a practical.
Which is retrofitting, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Again, like Blade Runner and Star Wars.
And it is, just fairly distant future Earth. It's not like Star Wars where it's another world where things that are clearly from like sequences like in when they go to the 50s diner in one of the prequels, and it's like this would make sense if this was set in the future and it was a retro diner, but why is there this is the stupidest idea.
It's George Lucas's kind of weird, like maybe sort of nod to American Graffiti.
Yeah, and there was no one there to tell him, George, hang on, that's stupid, mate. Don't do that. Which is the only reason all those stupid ideas were beaten out of the first films, basically, because he was still listening
by his
to people.
wife.
Yeah.
She's got 20 minutes to get in and out. God.
It does feel, like I said earlier, it does feel more like the first Terminator, more like a B movie than an A movie, but watching the longer version, it does feel bigger. It feels more substantial somehow. Not just longer, I mean, obviously.
I think what gives it its scale is kind of its production value. It's like very clever to sort of, in terms of saving money, they've been very creative to sort of use existing stuff to make it look different and futuristic, and thus it gives it kind of scale and production value, and makes it look expensive, but it's not expensive, and that's good filmmaking. And I think producers seem to have forgotten about that. No film needs to cost 350 million or 200 million, do they? If you could do something like this for $18 million at the time, which is, the cost of a marketing budget for some films, just to market it's 18 million, or, for a small film, it's mad, isn't it? That's the thing, when you're getting young filmmakers, they're hungry for work and they're hungry to show what they can do. They will go above and beyond, but everything's now based around CGI and green screen, where they can swap out the background, but anytime they want, they can. Producers have got the freedom to sort of change things at the last minute, causing huge amounts of stress on the FX teams. But they've got the money to get it done in a quick amount of time. You know,
It is. It really is a
yeah,
testament to Cameron's wide skill set.
yeah. Roger Corman training, isn't
Yeah,
it? You know,
and just generally not being a dick about things, spending money on what it should be spent, spending money on the movie, putting it on the screen, not yeah, not in and the tea trolleys, obviously, that must have been added to the budget, I guess.
need those scones.
But I can't remember, was it in your retrospective? So, the someone compared this to another movie, and I can't remember which one it is, saying, you know, that the budgets are broadly similar, but this looks like it cost twice as much, whereas the other movie looks like it cost half as much.
Well, Superman 4 cost the same.
That's yeah. It was you in your retrospective making that point about Superman 4. Yeah, Superman 4 was made for the same amount of money as this. The advantage of being able to shoot in real locations as well, not having to effectively build or design or at least set dress every single thing you see. And it looks like a piece of crap. It looks shocking, absolutely
Yeah,
shocking.
it's Sidney J. Fury and director of photography Ernest Day with no creative. Well, a bit harsh about Ernest Day. He's a good cameraman, but you know, just to put the camera in interesting places or do something with the camera, there's no. It's just like static shots, and camera. Someone will walk from point A to point B within frame. There's no, you know, it's nothing creative
Yeah,
going
but
on.
it's not, you're not just like creativity, if that makes sense, but also creative solutions to problems, which is what Cameron's so very good at. The the visual effects in Superman 4, you've got a Superman flying, you can see the green screen glow around him, the lighting doesn't match, the movements don't match. Cameron would have seen that and gone, no, that looks rubbish. If you can't do it, I'll do it myself, and I'll do it within the budget. And that's what would have happened. It doesn't even have to cost more money.
Well, I suppose it's the cost of making someone fly is really expensive back then, so they couldn't afford the rear projection system to do it. So they're doing blue screen. But they just rushed it
Mm.
all. So there's no consideration for what shot this blue screen flying shot is going to be. What's the background going to be? Or we don't know what it's going to be. We'll just kind of light it the same.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So you can, yeah, so you those problems can be created through lack of time, lack of money, or lack of talent at the end of the day. And it's the lack of talent. The lack of talent's the only terminal one, because the other problems can be sidestepped, avoided, or dealt with to some extent.
You've got people that aren't passionate
Yeah,
about it. They're just
yeah,
there to take the money and go. You know, and this is the complete opposite with Cameron. He's like passionate about everything he does, and that's ultimately he's got like a very small filmography. If you think about it, you know what I mean? Because you know he could have made, God, like 5 movies since Avatar, but he's just because he wanted to make all these sequels. I just wish he just really made one, okay, and spent the last 15 years doing other stuff, you know, because he's at the point where he's going to be too old to do anything else, you know what I mean?
because he looks his age now as well.
But yeah, it's like, but Ridley, though, he's like in his 80s, he's bashing out these movies, you know.
Yeah, but they're rubbish, though, aren't they? That's the problem.
No, I still like Ridley stuff, you know, even if it's a bit like, no, that script could have been, another draft could have been a bit better,
Yeah,
but I like Napoleon, you know.
there's something missing for me from his recent films, but they all have a value of some kind.
They all look,
They
still
do
look
look
fucking
great.
great.
They do.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen Napoleon, to be fair.
I might for the extended cut of that to go back to it. I will see the wire here. I'll really see it there, yeah. You're making too much noise, Ripley. They're going to hear you. They're going to send everyone after you. This is like quite nasty stuff. That she cut her hands up, all
Yeah.
pulling this all off. I think it had to be sort of pulled in a very specific way, and your hands to put on it, you know, take it off. And if you get stuck there for ages, need a pee, you can't. It's going to be troublesome. Look at all those miniatures. Oh.
Vasquez and is it Drake? The other one? Who's the other one with that enormous gun? It is Drake, isn't it? Yeah, they had the same problem, didn't they? Because they ended up those things were so big, they had to be that they so big and so heavy, the Steadicam rigs that the guns were attached to, that the Velcro straps just weren't staying Velcroed. They just kept so they ended up having to be like gaffer taped into them, which meant that they couldn't go to the toilet throughout the whole day of shooting.
And they're dishing out cups of tea. God, it makes you all relaxed. I need a poo now.
Should mention actually in my notes, I made a point of writing down the my favorite bit of that famous speech that Cameron gave on the last day of filming. Have you come across this? I've got and it was slightly out of context, but I've got to say it. So this is Cameron talking to the crew at Pinewood on the last day. What kept me going was the thought that I would drive out the gate of Pinewood and never come back, and that you sorry bastards would still be here. With that, he turned around and left.
Oh my god, that's brilliant. And he never filmed there again, did
No,
he? Never went back to Pinewood. That's fucking brilliant. He left on really bad terms, didn't he? God, I was pissed. Look at that reveal. Oh, hissing alien. And I love how there's a little moment here where the Queen communicates with the soldier. She tells him to sort of back off. But then Ripley gets annoyed because one of the eggs opens. But I suppose you always think like, oh, the Queen tricked her. But I always think the eggs always open when you get too close anyway. They just go, "Reh." They can sense it, you know.
but at the same time, that moment of communication tells Ripley that this thing's got some degree of intelligence, which gives her an
Yeah,
advantage
yeah,
because she can now threaten it or threaten its eggs.
yeah. I mean, Stan Winston's team creating this was like also they do the bin bag test where you create it all out and you get the guys in the things if it when it works and shot it on VHS and recorders and yeah, it's like when you see the sort of bin bag alien, it looks so shit. But it's just like the building blocks of how it would come together is just like so clever. And it's and like how Cameron shoots the Queen. There's no visible cable or harness or thing that's kind of controlling it, like with the puppeteers and the rigs to sort of hold it in place. It's so well done.
It must have been a really hard sell, this scene, because no dialogue. You've got aliens communicating with each other. You're asking a lot of the audience at this point.
Yeah, yeah. It's good visual storytelling, isn't it? Yeah. Because obviously, we mentioned before that Sigourney Weaver's, pacifist and doesn't like using guns, finds it terrifying. But when she started firing off, she was like, ugh! It thought it was good fun. But she said that's crazy. Like people, trust her to sort of set off this flamethrower and it could set people on fire.
I think that's where Al Matthews came in as well, wasn't it? He was absolutely adamant that everyone was going to treat these weapons with the proper respect. Because blanks are dangerous at the end of the day, as everyone knows. They've killed people, and there was a very nearly a horrible accident on this, wasn't there, as well? With I've read two different versions of who it was. One Bill Paxton, one of the others, but either a blank got because you can get a bit of debris in the barrel or a bit of
What's happened to Brandon Lee, wasn't
yeah,
it?
exactly. All kinds of things can go wrong. And during the shooting of this, someone fired a blank and it went straight out of the open door of the studio and into the set of Little Shop of Horrors, which was shooting over the way.
My
Took a big
God.
chunk of the set out. I mean, that could easily have killed someone.
Yeah, yeah.
So Al Matthews was adamant that everyone was going to handle the weapons exactly as they would in real life, as if they were using live ammunition.
Oh, I love all that. See, you hear those familiar sound effects of the explosions. They're all like the old take on Superman 3. Fucking hell. when that big computer explodes.
It's always noticeable, isn't it? Every now and again I'll come across as you know, I watch an awful lot of obscure and appalling B movies from the 80s and 90s. And every now and again you come across one that's blatantly stolen all the sound effects from Lucasfilm. There's that really distinctive Indiana Jones punch noise and the gunshots and so on.
I think the Americans were so much ahead of the curve with sound design during the 80s, where the British were just relying on stock stuff a lot.
Yeah, well, as far as I'm concerned, Ben Burt just reinvented the whole thing with Star Wars, and no one's ever bettered it. The sound design in Star Wars is extraordinary.
Yeah. What's it? James Horner said, like, when he went to use Abbey Road Studios, the facilities were so dated he couldn't even patch in a keyboard. Or was it this scene here? He couldn't finish the score. This is all lifted from Alien by Jerry Goldsmith.
Yeah.
That's why it sounds so different to Horner's material.
It's extraordinary when you think about it.
Yeah. But then the same situation with Jerry Goldsmith, who finished the score, but they didn't like parts of it, so they just licensed some of his older material to put in it. It's nothing. Anything that's from Alien 3 onwards, everything's been like, this is the composer's material. He's been given the time. Blah blah blah.
I think Abbey Road was one of the last major studios in the world to upgrade from a 4-channel recording system as well, from a 4-track system, in like decades after everyone else had done it.
Well, because James Horner said the guy who mixed Star Wars was completely out of his depth when it came to modern stuff.
I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark in Abbey Road Studios once. They had a season of screening movies that have had the soundtracks recorded there in the main studio.
Awesome.
I didn't. Have I ever told you this? I spilt a bottle of wine on the floor while I was in there. I always used to take a bottle of red wine with me to the cinema just to see me through. And it had this beautiful parquet flooring. It's the main studio where the Beatles and Floyd and everyone had recorded. And I didn't realise I'd knocked the bottle over, and the whole bottle of red wine had emptied into the parquet flooring. And I thought that, well, there's just no way that's ever coming out. And I've quite possibly left a more significant mark on the floor of Abbey Road's main studio than the Beatles did.
Oh dear, Rob. Did you get bollocked for that?
No, nobody noticed. Unfortunately, I actually left before it finished because it was a VHS projection, or DVD.
Oh,
but it would have
God.
been DVD, but it was an SD projection, so it was. And they hadn't told us that, and it was really disappointing, to be honest.
Yeah. I think there's been a few of those kind of like some cinemas in the USA kind of recently just doing screenings of movies of old films, and they're playing DVDs, and people are just like really pissed off.
I go to screenings every now and again of movies that are, from VHS, which are, because that's the only format the movie's ever been released on. And the picture's one thing, but it's the sound that's always the bigger problem. There's so much hiss and interference or something.
Because I think you can put up with a bad picture when sound's fucked. It makes it kind of unwatchable.
Exactly, yeah.
Or a bad podcast. Oh, this is obviously the famous cue, isn't it? Like used in every trailer during the 90s. But it gets used twice, doesn't it? So in this, dead. Got to escape from the cotton wool clouds. It's cotton wool, isn't it?
Is it really?
Yeah. It's genius. It's Stokac. Was it? No, Skotak Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did quite a few lot of dementia work on this as well.
Who Cameron met on Galaxy of Terror, and they did the. Honestly, have you seen Galaxy of Terror? Do you remember it at all?
I've seen bits of it, not seen all.
It really is striking. The costumes, the monster effects and so on. Everything's so similar. The set design, all of it.
Yay, we're free, but not. It was this bit really kind of like grossed me out as a kid. Well, young teen, when I finally got to see it all the way through. Just that when Bishop gets torn in half, it's really graphic. Would you say this film is scarier than Alien? Because David Giler said, it's not as scary as Alien.
It's you talked about this in your retrospective, and you made a really good point. And I've never thought of it as a horror film particularly, but it absolutely is. It's because there's so much action that you kind of your focus goes there. But it's a different kind of horror, isn't it? It's less about mood and
It's
suspense, and it's
shock.
more about shock. Yeah, it's more about jump scares and so on. But I think it just depends what you're more susceptible to.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I've certainly I shown this to my kids before I did it. In fact, I just still don't think I have Alien yet because to me the first Alien is scarier. But I don't know, it's just
If his like blood wasn't like milk, that was just pure red blood, this scene would not make the cut.
imagine. Yeah, there's no way, is there?
No, that would have been disgusting, wouldn't it? Yeah.
That's the sort of thing the MPAA in particular are really hot on. They really care about stuff like blood and what color it is and so on.
Mm. Oh, the great trivia. I'll have to put this on social media. When Ripley gets into the what's it called again?
Power loader.
The unit. Power loader. Power loader. That's also the thing for Starship Troopers. But there's a guy behind it operating it, so he controls things, and she just kind of like pretends to do stuff, right? But they put like a balloon on her seat, and it will just they pump air into it, and it kept getting bigger and bigger to imply as a trick that the guy behind is getting a boner, right? and she's like, what's going on back there? And she's like, what the fuck? You know, what's going on, John? You know, kept messing with her. It's so fucking funny. Same time she sat down and she kept getting pushed in the bum by what was supposed to be. You know,
I thought you were going to say
happiness.
they put some sort of whoopee cushion balloon there to make the
Oh,
guy
that would be
behind her
good.
think that Sigourney Weaver was farting on him.
Yeah.
God, there are so many grates and raised platforms in the future in space, aren't there? Everywhere's.
There is, isn't there? Yeah, drive you nuts,
Isn't
wouldn't
it?
it?
Isn't this the flaw? One of the flaws in this movie. Oh, what a shot!
Yeah, yeah.
One of the grated flaws in this movie is actually from the Nostromo, which completely coincidentally, it was like still lying around basically, and they needed something.
Really? Oh, I didn't know about that.
I think it's the Nostromo rather than the Sulaco, whatever it's called, the escape from Alien.
Oh, wow. It's great, you know, the early concept designs for this, what James Cameron had done. He designed this power loader fighting the Queen. He'd
Yeah.
drawn the Queen itself. You know, such an incredible artist. He already had a clear idea what he
They're
wanted.
great designs as well. The original sketches about in fact, all of it. Every time you see one of his original, whether it's the Terminator or anything else, that's a man with too much talent.
Yeah. Or was it like some sort of chalk drawings as well, don't they? Or he's using like Crayolas to draw. Always looks like, you know.
This could be the ultimate James Cameron scene, couldn't it? This kind of encapsulates everything he's about in filmmaking in terms of practically in the thematic side and the visual side, everything.
It's interesting what James says, like, oh, we have to do everything in camera. You know, that's why it stood the test of time, these movies, especially with The Abyss, a lot of in-camera stuff. And those miniatures he used. And it's the opposite to how James operates now. And his philosophy of how he does visual effects. It's very much like, we can do this in a computer. We can do everything in the computer. We can create a whole world. Just like, you know, it was kind of frustrated me during that period. He kind of went the route of George Lucas, you know, and I don't think his stories were as good as they used to be, you know.
He's always been Avatar. As I've probably said, I've not even seen Avatar all the way through. I just can't be doing with it. From as far as I can tell, it's incredibly derivative of other movies, and
Many other things.
like
Yeah, it
George
is, yeah.
Lucas, and like Cameron's, and to be honest, Terminator and Aliens are both, really fairly derivative at the end of the day of other properties. In this case, the big one being Robert Heinlein's novel and the Terminator famously. But there's a there's an art to sort of repurposing ideas and concepts and so on. And that's what Lucas did brilliantly in Star Wars, and that's what and it feels like so often happens with filmmakers. Cameron's just lost his way in that regard, and isn't conjuring that same magic anymore. It's that South Park episode, Dances with Smurfs. And I haven't, like I say, I haven't seen it, so I probably can't judge. But you read the plot description of Avatar, and it's just, well, okay, I've seen that movie before.
Yeah, yeah. Also, my friend Andrew highlighted to me that some of the music is lifted from the Guy Pearce Time Machine movie, and the world he visits in the future is very much like Avatar. It's like he's clearly just like watched that and gone,
Oh
oh
yeah, no, there doesn't appear to be anything original about the world that Avatar's set in.
Oh, that music. But it's when I first saw Avatar, like the first opening bit, it's like, this feels like the world of Aliens. Lots of metal grated floors, hazard tape everywhere. I was like, yeah, back into the world of Aliens.
When you search for images related to aliens on Google, half the stuff you get back's from Avatar. Is if you if you search for a power loader from Aliens or whatever, you'll get a load of stuff from Avatar.
But hey, they're the most successful films ever made, so you can't be wrong, can he? We're just grumpy old men.
Well,
why is he making Terminator 5, or something,
inflation. I don't know what it is. I don't know about inflation adjusted, but there are certain realities that skew these. I suspect if you adjust for inflation, they'll still be huge. But also, movies like that just didn't used to get released around the world in the way that they are now, and the international audience wasn't as big. There are, in terms of people who actually walked through. I remember reading this. In terms of people who actually walked through a cinema's doors to watch a movie in America, Gone with the Wind is by far the most seen, the most popular. So that's probably what counts. And there were far fewer people in America then. And it's 4 hours long, so there were fewer screenings.
But it's like, at the end of the day, you can't judge the quality of a movie by its box
of course
office
not.
because
It's all anecdotal.
Transformer films, those sequels are dreadful and they make huge amounts of money.
Yeah, China's got a lot to answer for sometimes, I think. Mind you, we probably would never have had the Meg 2 without China, so that's one bonus.
My friends hated Meg 2. It's weird. It's weird, isn't it? Like, some people loved it and everyone was like, this is trash.
Yeah, it is trash, and I love it.
Oh yeah,
Complete trash.
I forgot what I was speaking to. The king of trash, Rob
Jason
Hill.
Statham fights a megalodon. What? I mean, that's just. And on that note,
The film hates. But yeah, it's still a masterpiece. I've seen this so many times. It's unbelievable. It never gets boring. Yeah, it's up there. It's in my. People always ask me what your top 10 films are. Even some people say to me, "What's your top 10 100 films, Oliver?" I'm like, I haven't got time to list all this stuff for you. Who are you? I don't know you. But Aliens is always in.
Well, at least they ask you what your favourite
in,
films are. They ask me what the worst films ever made are.
But yeah, it's definitely top 10.
It's incredibly rich for a genre movie. It's just so unbelievably rich. I think in every conceivable way. There's never a dull moment, like you say, in terms of entertainment value. It's incredibly rich. And I don't want to keep banging on about the themes, but thematically, it's just extraordinary for a mainstream genre movie, which is effectively what it was. There's almost nothing like it. The extent to which the emotions are heightened and our emotional engagement is sort of activated. It really is an extraordinary film.
It's tough to a genre like this and what they're dealing with to write characters that you really care about and not get lost in the mayhem. And this does it so so extremely well. And we've seen that with the genre, the sequels moving forward, or spin-offs like AVP, where characters are just generally poorly written, and they're just kind of they're more concerned about setting up the action and so forth. And you can have action, but there just be a reason for it, not not just for show. And this demonstrated that Cameron knew where to go with the sequel, what to offer more, take what worked from the Alien, and sort of, and create a sequel that didn't, damage the first one or make everyone think differently about it. He basically, they fit together.
Exactly.
But even though they're very different movies, and I'd always say that this is a lot more rewatchable than Alien, but Alien it is a masterpiece, but it's kind of film you kind of watch when you're in the right mood, and you're always rewarded by the end. But this is just like, it is something to watch with a group of people.
It's the perfect example of a sequel that builds on the first movie rather than recycling it or or reacting to it, which is something else sequels can do. It builds on it perfectly.
So, the next commentary, what I presume we'll probably be doing, what else will we be doing? It'll be Terminator 3.
Oh, yay.
Rise of the Machines. Rob has not seen that in a very long time. He's going to be very annoyed.
I've only seen it once in my life,
Oh my god! Okay, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed the commentary. Me and Rob will be back with Terminator 3. And we'll see if Rob can handle rewatching the film and be able to talk about it in a cohesive way.
I'm going to have a drink first.
Take care, everyone, and goodbye for now.